This time we will reconvene into our open session. Certification of resolution of compliance, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Motion, the closed meeting was conducted in the conformity with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as required by Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia, and certify that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements were discussed, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
Okay, motion made. Second, please.
I second that motion.
Okay, vote. Okay, motion carried. I want to welcome everyone to our school board meeting tonight. I want to also remind you that masks are required, and if someone came without a mask, there are masks up here at the front. Okay. This time I'd like to ask our Vice Chair, Ms. Tynes, to lead us in the pledge in the moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
This time we're ready for our Isle of Wight Achievers.
Good evening. The vision for Isle of Wight County Schools is to create a learning environment that will enable every child to discover his or her unique gifts and talents. The Isle of Wight Achievers section of our board meeting gives us an opportunity to recognize and celebrate our students and staff for their unique talents and gifts. Our first recognitions are actually some of you. The Virginia School Board Association recognizes board members with an award for their commitment to effective school board governance through their participation in the VSBA School Board Academy during the 2020-2021 school year. School board members earn academy credits through participation in VSBA meetings and other academy sessions and through VSBA governance and service activities. Receiving awards of achievement and a bronze VSBA pin are Jackie Carr, Julia Perkins, and Dr. Jim Thornton. And I've already put your certificates and pins at your seats. So thank you and congratulations. Very good.
Ms. Briggs, may I
Yes.
say something?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to let people know that Denise Tynes did not receive an award because when I came back to the school board, of course, we all know we went into the pandemic, and the Virginia School Board Association, they do that over a 2-year period. I've only been here 2 years and they shut down, so I have attended a couple of their virtual sessions.
Yes, ma'am.
But hopefully next year, things will be different. Thank you, Ms. Briggs.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Tynes. Next, we're going to have our Seniors of the Month. We're back to doing our Seniors of the Month for the new school year, so that's exciting. Each month, we recognize a student from Windsor High and Smithville High as Senior of the Month. And our first honoree tonight from Windsor High School is Connor Karmelovich. Did I get it? I knew I was going to trip myself up. Connor Karmelovich. Connor is a standout student because he goes above and beyond. He challenges himself by asking deep questions, taking initiative in his learning, and demonstrating curiosity. This month alone, Connor was placed in quarantine. He took his, it was a couple weeks ago, so just sorry.
He never got it.
There we go. He took ownership of his education by seeking out and asking if teachers would Zoom with him during his quarantine so that he didn't get too far behind. This spoke volumes about his character and his drive. Quote, Connor's work ethic and attention to detail make him a joy to have in the learning environment. He is a free thinker with the ability to translate what he has learned into ideas that can be applied outside of the classroom. And that comes from science teacher at Windsor High, Deb McManaway. Connor plans to attend Virginia Tech, which always gets a big thumbs up from me, and study computer science. And Connor, we want to congratulate you. And if you would stand maybe between where Ms. Dial and Ms. Carr are, and we're going to ask our boards that's here to stand at your seats. And Neely and Dr. Thornton, I don't know if we need to squeeze in a little, but David's going to get a photo. And if there's any family members that want a picture, this is the perfect time.
Yes.
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 Okay, so the motion carried. Okay, during the public comments, we're asking that there be no applauding for whatever said. We ask that whoever comes up to speak, please address the board. And at this time, we will hear from our first speaker.
Okay, so Madam Chair, I need to make an announcement. Someone I think has accidentally picked up page 2 of the sign-in sheet. So if you could check your papers, because I have an electronic copy, but I'm missing numbers 17 through 24. So if anyone signed up, I don't have those on my electronic copy because they were here. So
I hope it didn't go out with the other
it's,
parents.
red sheet like this. Anybody?
Announced it at the beginning.
Did we find it? That's okay, as long as we found it, that's all that matters. Thank you. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, so there weren't any through there. Okay. So. Is it on now? Okay. So in accordance to policy BDD-E, presentations of information on any subject will be concluded at the discretion of the board. No person will be recognized to speak more than once. Citizens scheduled to speak on the agenda will be permitted 3 minutes. Maximum time for their presentations. Delegations are requested to limit their speakers to 2. A maximum of 30 minutes will be designated, but that's been amended, correct?
Right.
That's been waived for today.
Waived
Yeah,
for
it's
today.
been waived.
Yes. Persons speaking are asked to be specific, state the issues for the board's consideration, and attach a copy of your prepared remarks. If you have any prepared remarks, they should be given to the board clerk. Please do not approach the board members. The school board requests that speakers refrain from referring to specific individuals and that any matter related to a specific student or individual be discussed in a closed meeting. Speakers are addressing the school board and will face the board while at the podium and not interact with members of the audience. All right. So first, I'm not sure if he's here, Chad Smith. Okay. I wasn't sure. Okay. Mr. Boykin.
Opie Boykin, Carswell District, and I'd like to preface this by saying some of it, especially for the people watching, is not for the ears of children, even though it is a dictate by the school board. So if anybody's got children,
Address the board. when you
anybody's got
speak.
children they don't want to hear, I would suggest they plug their ears up. I've got a lot, but I'm not going to take up a lot of time. These are excerpts from books recommended by the schools to the students. This one's from The Hate You Give. The crowds are too thick. We climb on top of the bus, stop bench to get a better view of everything going on. King lords in gray bandanas and garden disciples in green bandanas stand on a police car in the middle of the street chanting, "Justice for Khalil." People gather around the car, record the scene with their phones, and throw rocks at the windows. "Fuck that cop, bro," a guy says, gripping a baseball bat. "Killed him over nothing." He slams the bat into the driver's side window, shattering the glass. "It's on." The King Lords and GDs stomp out the front window and somebody yells, "Flip that motherfucker." The gangbangers jump off. People line up on the side of the car, and I stare at the lights on top. Remember the ones that flashed behind me and Khalil, and watch them disappear as they flip the car onto its back. Someone shouts, "Watch out." A Molotov cocktail sails towards the car, then whoomph. It bursts into flame. The crowd cheers. People say misery loves company, but I think that's like with anger too. And it goes on. People hurl rocks and glass bottles at the cops. Yo, 7 says, "Stop throwing objects at law enforcement." The officer says, "Exit the streets immediately or you'll be subject to arrest." The rocks and bottles continue to fly. 7 hops off the bench. "Come on," he says. "Chris, and climb off too. We need to get out of here." "Fuck the police. Fuck the police." Devontae continued to shout. "Devontae, man, come on," says 7. "I ain't scared of them. Fuck the police." There's a loud pop, and an object sails into the air and lands in the middle of the
1 minute.
street. One more excerpt from another book, really quick. This is from Out of Darkness by Ashley Hope Perez, recommended by the schools. He shifted in his pajamas, and the part of him that made him a man stuck out. Reddish purple and frightening. She had never seen one before except on a baby. This was different. He lifted her hand to his mouth and licked it. Then he lowered her hand down and closed it around the hardness. His hand moved around hers. She watched her hand move back and forth like it didn't belong to her. There's worse. Plenty of it. You all should be very proud.
All right.
We ask that there be no applauding for or against whatever is spoken. We ask that we remain quiet.
Mr. Thomas Du Bois. Thomas Du Bois.
Madam Chair, let's take a 2-minute recess so I can talk to you.
Okay, a 2-minute recess. Well, has it been 2 minutes? Okay,
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and proceed.
Okay. Jason Marsh.
Jason Marsh, Windsor, Virginia. Chairman Carr, the book that Mr. Boykin just read, this is a picture of it sitting in Georgia Tyler Middle School classroom library, right here. Last month, Mrs. Tynes and Mrs. Perkins endorsed the Read Woke Challenge. This book is on the Read Woke Challenge. Mrs. Tynes said, "We're training our high school students to survive," and added that these books are for high school, not middle school or elementary. Your words. Here it is, middle school. Lord knows where else it is. It's out there. Mrs. Perkins, I don't know where she sits tonight. I hope she's well. She went so far as to say, high school students need to explore their own sexuality. She didn't want censorship. She's a proponent of the Read Woke books. So here's another one of your Read Woke books. It's called Out of Darkness. And I quote, "Kids, close your ears. For the boys, pussy, or the idea of pussy, or the idea of pussy. A Mexican is a Mexican is a Mexican," she said, plenty loud for the rest of us to hear. The girls among us followed Miranda's lead and began to tally flaws. Clothes from 5 years ago, a braid, long out of style, patch on the back of the hem of her dress, and also, how come her name is Smith when Smith isn't Mexican? Look at her, making eyes at Fred, not wasting any time. Boys among us had no trouble getting past the plain clothes and laying down plans. Take her out back, we boys figured. Then, hands on the titties, put it in her coin box, put it in her corn hole. Grab a hold of that braid and rub that calico. There's your woke. Get read woke. That's what you got in our schools. That's what you put in our schools. A shame on every one of you that endorses this garbage. Kids deserve better. We're going to sit up here later and we're going to watch this man get up here and try to tell us how it's too difficult to track these books. It's too difficult, too hard, not worth the effort. Instead, it's just ridiculous. Too hard to track them. I've already seen the agenda. On top of that, we're going to let IT come up here and tell us that adult content, drugs, and hate are not allowed on IT systems in our schools, but we allow this garbage in our libraries and our classrooms. So why are we taking such a hard line on the IT? We let it go in the books. Why? There's no answer for it. You don't have one. I want this man fired, and I want you to take some accountability for it.
Miss Arlene Williams? Yeah, sorry.
I made sure my daughter kept her ears open, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I did want to just talk about, and I'm an English teacher, I wanted to talk on the attack on authors, or shall I say, rather, the attack on the community. Because while we're focusing on words within a book, I'm focusing on something a little bit different in my classroom that I'm seeing, that the teachers that just spoke are not seeing. First, I want to start by talking about the word sick, which carries the definition of a physical or mental illness, feeling of nauseous or wanting to vomit, or to bring something up from vomit. And if I'm not mistaken, this word was used at the last school board meeting to describe the character traits of a specific author. I think that our world has been shifted so much from disagreements and the lack of understanding that we are afraid of what might come up from the vomit. And it is far more than the words from the books that we have in our schools. The vomit that I speak of today is racism, discrimination, and the hate that you ultimately give. Sometimes it comes back to you. Division, false characterization, and hurt. As a respectful person with morals and values, you know, my children are watching me, so I want to publicly state that each one of you may represent a different district, but I do respect your position. My mom taught me that. As an English teacher, I wanted to pull some lines from some of my favorite authors that I respect because of their transparency. I will push Montagues against the wall and thrust their maids against the wall. Famous line from a play that I teach in my English class. The women in most famous piece literature that depicts a journey or an epic of a man, however, the women in this epic are not seen for who they are, but they're seen for their affairs that they have. Oh, we've been teaching that for years, by the way. I don't have time to talk about the spicy scenes the author creates with the words. The famous piece of literature from a man that lost his father, mother died in two, married his cousin. His famous story speaks of a character who got a man drunk and chained him to a wall due to jealousy. Yet I respect the author for his transparency to help the mindset of my students in my classroom who may be dealing with so many issues. While I will not read Out of the Darkness as a class set in my classroom, it is an excellent individual read that reflects the tensions between school, home, and community. You do know that your children talk about these tensions in the classroom.
1 minute.
You just don't know because of the sickness and the illnesses of a traditional corrupt mindset of our community. But I love the many facets of the English language. It has been 2 weeks since my seniors in my classroom have been teaching life lessons. And so here are the questions that they have for us. They don't hear us. Why do they disregard our feelings as a child? Why is your respect immediately given and mine has to be earned? Why do you never ever ask me how I am or who I am? And why do you not listen, but we are forced to listen to you? Why do you cast aside who I am for you in the community when you look silly on the TV fussing at the school board meetings. So I said all this to say that as teachers, we are faced with so many underlying issues, and I'm not here and I don't represent any side except for the side of my children and my students. I don't pick sides for anyone at all. We have been sitting in these board meetings acting like babies, and I believe that words change atmospheres, and it can also harm the atmosphere as well. What are your solutions? Give me some strategies to address the vaping in the schools. Give me some strategies that I had this morning when I held my student
Time.
in the classroom and said that I love you. So those are the things. Give me some strategies and not just speaking points.
Thank you.
Jennifer Williams.
Jennifer Williams, Carrollton District. It just seemed like what people were doing. And why not Tyrone? He was fine, he was older, and mostly nice to me. At least I convinced myself he was. And most important, he wanted me. He could have sex with any girl, but he wanted me. The day I lost my virginity, I had half a day of school, and Tyrone skipped the rest of his classes to meet up with me. I was so nervous about a busybody neighbor seeing me bring a boy home that we went all the way to his house. My first impression of sex, it was a lot more technical than I expected. He kept struggling with the condom, and I laughed because I was nervous as he was fumbling so much. Apparently, laughing is not the move at such a critical moment, because his face got real tight around the mouth and the fumbling got worse. He was supposed to be the expert at this. When he finally shoved in me, it stung. For a second, I wasn't sure if I wanted to push him away or pull him closer. And then he was panting and sweating on my chest and apologizing. And I kept telling him it was okay, thinking he was apologizing for hurting me until I realized he was apologizing because it was over. All I could keep thinking was that he definitely didn't have any sweet words or niceness in the moment that I needed it most. I cleaned myself up, put on my pants, and left. He didn't even say goodbye. Each one of you approved this book in our children's schools. And Miss Carr, you might possibly be the biggest disappointment of them all. Because once you heard about the contents of these books,
1 minute.
you opposed it. Then you received opposition from the rest of the board, and you let it silence you. You were our only voice, and now we have no one to fight this for us. I'm not opposed to the idea of the Read Woke Challenge. I am opposed to the books, some of the books on this list, not all of them, actually. I'm opposed to the pornography, the drug use, and the violence that you have allowed in this county's school libraries. I ask you to adopt the same process as Fairfax and Virginia Beach school systems. Remove the books from the library circulation and electronically until an audit can be done. Audit the books, and any containing materials like this, remove them. Please remove them. We don't need these in our kids' hands. They have enough to fight against. This is
Time.
not something that we need to add to. Thank you.
Heidi Schwartz. Heidi Schwartz.
So we've heard some passages from books found at both the high and middle school in our Wight County. This includes the 6th grade. Virginia law involving morals, indecency, and obscene items in regards to minors. Obscene. And I'll define this as Dr. Thornton stated previously. Who defines books? Well, the law does. It defines when it appears in books as a theme or purpose, interest in sex that is shameful or moral, interest in nudity, sexual content, and sexual excitement. That's the law. It states that it's a crime to provide a book with sex to children. But But we live in a state of Virginia. So we have a former governor who's currently running for office, and he allowed it in 2016 to be in schools. Does that make it moral and decency? No, it still doesn't, but it allows it to be in the schools. If someone else were to hand these books to my child, it would be a crime. But in the school, it's not. So you guys are fortunate enough to have that exemption in the state of Virginia. But this is from a man who just stated he does not think parents should tell schools what to teach their children. So let's turn to the success in our schools under Dr. Thornton. In 2014, we ranked at number 16. By 2019, we dropped to number 45. Dr. Thornton does not like us to compare numbers unless we are looking at his 13%.
I will stop board comments if you don't remain respectful. Go ahead.
Dr. Thornton does not like us to compare numbers unless we are looking at his 13% raise. Dr. Thornton has also finally done research on the books, and he'll tell you that students are mature enough and should have a right to privacy in their library usage. At the same time tonight, they'll discuss governing the students' devices and usage. Dr. Thornton will propose to pass the buck to parents to monitor their kids' library usage because he will propose it's too hard for the school. But I'll direct you to please check out the database School Knot. That's with a K-N-O-T. It's at the number one school management and software. I'll also propose a resolution that I sent to both Ms. Dial and Ms. Carr. As a school board, are you willing to denounce the letter that the National School Board Association sent to President Biden requesting that he direct federal law enforcement to investigate parents? If so, have you contacted the NSBA and the U.S. Department of Justice? Have you seen anything from the constituents, especially us, who have been showing up at meetings for the last 6 months that has described us as a domestic terrorist? And if so, something that local law enforcement would not be able to handle. Can you please tell us how the school board and superintendent define words of intimidation, harassment, and threat? And I kindly request that the board pass a resolution in support of parents' rights to free expression under the First Amendment without fear of retribution, just as our Board of Supervisors made us a constitutional county in December of 2019 that includes the First Amendment. We ask that you formally announce this to the NSBA. I also request a detailed financial audit on the school system and Dr. Thornton's spending for the last 2 years.
Time. Ms. Vanderbrake?
Hello. So I have some more pieces to the book. First is the poem X, and it states, "So I press my lips to his mouth is soft against mine. Gently he bites my bottom lip, and then his tongue slides in my mouth. It's messier than I thought it'd be. He must notice because his tongue slows down, and my heart is one of the Darwin's finches learning to fly." Then out of darkness, He undid the bottom of her dress, and until he could slide a hand inside the top of her slip, there was a small roll of fabric nestled warm and tight there. He leaned over her and tugged it free with his teeth. When he had it, she could feel him smiling mischief at her. "What can I say? I save this and keep looking to see what other treasures I find." He nuzzled her neck and kissed her behind the ear. He smelled of wood and pepper. She exhaled slowly and buttoned her dress back up with shaky fingers. "It's not as beautiful as a ring, but I did make it for you." Then, at the end of Out of Darkness, then Henry's fist slamming into his sister's face once, twice, 3 times. Henry shouted, "You like that? Keep it up, boy. Every time you holler, I'm gonna punch her again." Wash's silence, the rustle of dry leaves, his father rapid breathing on agony of waiting, his sister crying out in pain. And then the end of it, Henry shudder, grunt, and gasp, Naomi sobbing. When Beto could look, Henry was standing up and zipping his pants with one hand. "I'll be damned, girl," he said, pushing his hair back off his brow. "You were telling the truth." This is when she's getting raped at the end, and it goes further on, but I'm not going to read all of that. So I had sent an email to everybody, and I don't know who all actually reads their email. but I encourage you to read it. And it talks about, the article is about emotional desensitization in relation to abnormal child psychology. So I know that censorship is an issue, but so is desensitizing the kids, because it does lead to more violent behavior. Due to the lack of transparency in the use of the taxpayer-funded school system, I, as a taxpaying resident of Isle of Wight and parent of children in the public school system to which these funds belong, I formally call on the Isle of Wight County School Board to have a detailed audit of all the spending by the school board and Superintendent Thornton from 2018 to 2019 school year to present.
Jason Moore.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Appreciate it. Good evening. My name is Jason Moore, and I'm the proud father of 3 children currently enrolled within the Isle of Wight County School System, and the proud son of a retired educator of over 30 years' experience. First, let me say thank you to the school board for allowing me to speak this evening to voice my concerns. It is my goal this evening to articulate in a manner that promotes both honest and open dialogue. We began our journey with Isle of Wight County Schools in the fall of 2019 with our eldest child in hopes of providing him with a more sound and safe learning environment versus the current academic options provided by Suffolk City Schools. We took a tour of Windsor High School and were so impressed with the quality of educational opportunities, we had no issues moving forward and paying out-of-district tuition. To this point, my family has been impressed with the broad spectrum of courses offered by the accessibility to teachers and staff alike, and we are eternally grateful for that. Since the commencement of this academic year, certain things have caught my attention regarding what is being taught to our children and the criteria by which these materials have been selected. I just want to ensure that our elected officials are not making any unilateral or bias-based decisions that will affect the educational process or alter the thought process of any student in any negative way. I truly believe that the education of our children is a partnership between parents, school faculty, and board members, with the end goal of providing students a quality education free from any violence. When materials are selected and taught in the classroom, it should be free from any personal, political, or social bias and vetted properly prior to any implementation. I truly want our children to succeed, which I believe is the goal of every person here, and this is why we are here. We need to be aware of any materials that breaks down, categorizes, or promotes siloed thinking. By accepting any type of forced studies from any viewpoint, we automatically alienate, ostracize, and limit free thought and handicap our children from forming their own opinions. We should strive for education without any type of indoctrination and maintain parental rights to oversee our children's education without any type of government overreach. I do understand that there are children from all backgrounds who struggle in the world of academia, and it's incumbent upon all of us to provide every student a quality education regardless of race, sex, or religion. I hope that we keep our focus on our children, curb any indignations that we have, and truly will become a beacon of community and educational excellence that will be a success story for years to come. I hope my words do not fall upon deaf ears and prick the hearts of those willing to listen. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak, and may we all be mindful and respectful of one another and keep our children at the forefront. Thank you.
Todd Meyer. Todd Meyer? No? Okay. Just making sure. Charles Haskett. Am I saying that right? Haskett? Or-
Hey, good evening, everybody. I could pass these around if
Yes.
you don't mind.
Thank you.
Actually, let me keep
One. Okay.
All right. My name is Charles Haskett, and I'm here from the Windsor District. I don't have a child in school yet, but he may or may not start next year, depending on how the concerns I have are addressed. It seems these concerns are shared with many other parents as well. Before you now is a proposal for resolution that I would like to see become policy. To save time, I will skip the mission or the whereas sentences and get down to the resolution or now therefore it be resolved sentence. 1. Any school, school-based program, activity, or entity that is operated, controlled, paid for, or under the jurisdiction of the school board shall refrain from training, teaching, providing material, or promoting the following students and employees. A, that any race is inherently superior or inferior to any other race. B, that any individual by virtue of his or her race or skin color is inherently racist, privileged, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. C, that an individual by virtue of his or her race or skin color bears responsibility for the actions committed by other members of his or her race, skin, color, or religion. D, an individual's moral character or worth is determined by his or her race or skin color. E, that the United States is a fundamentally and inherently racist country. F, that capitalism is racist. G, socialist communist ideologies and political indoctrination or affiliation. H, sexually explicit reading materials. This resolution couldn't be more clearly stated and defined, so I can't see why that any of you would have objections to signing this and making this a policy. I and almost every other parent in here could now be labeled extremist or domestic terrorist by simply speaking out against this socialist indoctrination and critical race ideology. And if that isn't proof that there's an agenda going on, you are either complacent or supportive of these destructive agendas and do not deserve the continued support of all the Wight County residents.
All right. Sabrina Barnes.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Thornton. My name is Sabrina Barnes from the Smithfield District. I'm a retired Isle of Wight County Schools special education teacher, school counselor, and the 2015 Division Teacher of the Year. I'm here to speak on the social emotional needs of the students, particularly as they relate to the school counseling program. Students are experiencing many negative influences and hardships, including pandemic issues, dangerous and destructive TikTok challenges, academic pressures, and more. As a result, students are in critical need of support, guidance, and resources now more than ever. Unfortunately, counselors far too often find themselves unable to respond to students' needs and requests for assistance in a timely manner, much less deliver a comprehensive preventative guidance program to enhance the learning process for all students. When I first began my role as a school counselor at Windsor Middle, now Georgie Tyler Middle School, Isle of Wight school counselors' duties were in alignment with the best practice recommendation that counselors spend 80% of their time providing direct and indirect services to students. Over the years, however, school counselors have become tasked with many administrative and clerical duties which are unrelated to their training and their unique skill set. This has led to diminishing amounts of time to build meaningful relationships with students and to implement programs that support student growth and achievement. To illustrate the impact, I'll share a personal example. During my last year as a school counselor, I was assigned the duty of being the building SOL test coordinator. In the midst of SOL testing, while sitting in the conference room surrounded by buckets upon buckets of testing materials,
1 minute.
secure testing tickets, and a long line of teachers waiting to check out supplies, a student was brought to the door to see me because his parent had passed away the night before. Test security requirements and testing duties prevented me from being able to be present with my student when he needed me most. That evening, I went home and told my husband I would be asking to return to the classroom position. I left a profession that was my calling and passion. I have more examples to say, but to try to sum it up, the last school board meeting, a presentation was made on social emotional learning. Counselors were absent from that presentation. We're hiring instructional assistants. with maybe 2-year degrees and training them over the summer to provide services that counselors could and should be providing. They have many times advanced degrees, training and coursework in psychology.
Time.
And we can do better. They deserve it. Thank you.
Laura Fletcher.
Oops, sorry about that. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board and Dr. Thornton. My name is Laura Fletcher, and I'm a resident of Isle of Wight County, wife and mother of 3 children, all graduates of Smithfield High School. For many years, I volunteered many hours in our schools, and every moment was special. I enjoyed relationships with our school board members, administrators, teachers, parents, and students. I'm proud of those years and the time spent working with others toward the shared goal of enriching the educational experiences of children in Isle of Wight County. But Terry McAuliffe dismisses parent involvement, preferring decisions regarding educating our children to be left to the government. Last night I attended the candidate meet and greet. Midway through the event, a black gentleman asked a powerful, even stunning question of all the candidates. He asked, have you considered the socio-economic and political impact of race-based politics? And if so, what are your thoughts? I don't believe anyone was prepared for this question. But in my mind, it was the most succinct, important, and timely question of the evening. Organizations, political parties, academia, education unions, media, even some ministries are profiting from the continual stirring of race-based politics. This brings me to the dangerous, divisive, and especially profitable American Marxist ideology, critical race theory. Isle of Wight County Schools, though denying, has purchased CRT curriculum under the guise of equity and is paying the exorbitant salary of our equity coordinator. So yes, even locally, race-based politics is proving profitable. The politics of race, CRT, has now been nationally highlighted, in that just 10 days ago, the Attorney General of the United States wrote a memorandum authorizing the use of federal authorities against American parents. I'll continue to go on down. Race-based politics is harming our children, wreaking havoc in our schools, affecting the very foundations of American society, giving power to the undeserving, and making the unscrupulous millions in the process. And we reject this evil. Before anything else, I'm a follower of Jesus. I'm here to appeal to anyone on this board or anyone in the audience professing a biblical faith to reject the ideology of critical race theory. CRT is anti-gospel. It has no place in the life of believers. It condemns and shames without forgiveness or the opportunity of redemption. Racism is a hard issue and is an affront to the majesty and creativity of God. He made the races. He loves variety. Each of us is a living testimony to the beauty and excellence of the living God. All men are due respect and civility. And as Americans, we must return to our foundations. All men are created equal and endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights.
Jennifer Napier.
So let's start with transportation. We have a shortage of drivers. Now we hear that the head of transportation has resigned. Wonder why. But anyway, what are the plans to rectify this issue? Something has to happen. Now let's discuss the books. There have been quite a few snarky comments made by certain people in this room, and we've seen the emails from certain principals about it. So let me make this clear. These are minors we are talking about. If no one in the school system is going to take a stand, then we as parents will. And trust me, regardless of what Thornton has said, there is a lot more than 20 of us that are concerned. Like my mom always says, no one is going to stick up for you or fight for your kids the way you will. She did it for me, and I'm doing it for mine. That's my job. Your job is to protect and educate our children, not indoctrinate them. If you have any reading materials made available to underage students that have graphic pictures, descriptions of sex, then each and every one of you are promoting pornography to minors. Bottom line, the definition of of child pornography under federal law is: child pornography under federal law is defined as any visual depiction of sexually explicit conduct involving a minor, someone under the age of 18. Child pornography is illegal under federal law in all states and is punishable by up to 20 years in prison and a fine of $5,000. We are aware that McAuliffe put this trust in the schools to choose appropriate literary and artistic works. However, there are 7 literary standards that should be used in determining literary value: universality, artistry, intellectual value, suggestiveness, spiritual value, permanence, and style. It appears that someone may have used these standards in the loosest way possible or not at all. Are all of you guilty of this? We as parents will of course be watching like a hawk. However, your job is to keep it out of the schools to begin with. The parents of Clark County Schools in Nevada have served a $200 million lawsuit against the county school district for 6 violations as of now. And we will be more than willing to move in that direction if necessary. This will also include any COVID violations, any civil rights violations, and any human rights violations. Thornton became superintendent in Wight County Schools in 2015. Our school rating has dropped from 16th to 45th from 2015 to 2019, yet he received a 13% raise. Please explain this, because all I've seen from him is gaslighting, blowing smoke, and failure to do his job as he was hired to do, along with the rest of the school board that were elected to properly educate our children and in a responsible way. It is also worthy of note that if a COVID vaccine mandate is pushed on these children, you need to be prepared for what could possibly be a mass exodus, which will translate to less funding. In conclusion, I also request a detailed financial audit on the school system and Thornton's spending for the last 2 years.
Reverend Willie Williams.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members, Dr. Thornton, and I believe Mr. Johnson from Westside Elementary School. I commend him on what he was able to present. You know, the Bible says, inasmuch as some people want to talk about religion, the Bible says, along with wisdom, get understanding. I want to talk just for a brief moment about organizational cultural change. And when individuals can't get you one way, they'll come at you a different way. And I warn you all from the onset that if you implement on the initiative of equity and inclusion, you're talking about a cultural change, and it's not going to be well received. And people who don't want to change will naturally fight against it. They'll demonstrate all kinds of negative attitude. When I speak of cultural, I'm talking about folk ways. I'm talking about custom. I'm talking about the reason why we behave the way we do. And no organization will change for no reason. And it's been recognized in Isle of Wight County that we have inequity. We have it at the administrative level. We have it at the staff level. We have it at the teachers level.
1 minute.
And we have it at the student level. And in order to make a change, equity and inclusion could possibly help change the culture. The culture is the most difficult part of any organization to change. All of these things that being pulled up about woke, I guarantee you every author that's in that woke program is someone with a minority background. And the only reason why it's being pulled up is to pull the wool over your eyes, to make you think and focus your attention on the woke program. But that's not what it's about. It's about getting rid of Dr. Thornton, getting rid of Ms. Jones, that they may destroy the equity and inclusion program because they don't want to change. Thank you.
Mr. John Colick.
So I don't forget.
Thanks.
Let me put my glasses on real quick. This will not be long. But good evening, everybody. As you know, my name is John Colick from Carsville. Now, I was recently asked about the demographics of our schools, of both students and staff. I found significant disparities between the students versus teachers. Folks, we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars of our students' money on equity inclusion. Why can't we make sure our staff is reflective of the community? We don't need a program to tell us what's right, especially since much that's in that program we believe is wrong. Every single one of us in this room knows what's right and knows what's not. So as a community, let's focus on fixing this issue, but not by wasting our children's money on programs we simply don't need. Let's take our kids' money that's being spent on equity and let's hire teachers, teachers' assistants, and tutors, and guidance counselors that we need to help every child achieve not only a passing grade for their grade level, but also to build the confidence they need to continue moving forward. It's their money, after all. Let's purchase anything at all that's going to help an individual child, even if we only buy one product for one child. If a child needs help reading, let's give them Hooked on Phonics. Every child is different, and every child learns differently, and every single child can reach their potential, but some with a little extra help. And we need to identify exactly what every child, particularly those who are not doing well, needs, and provide it to them. And let's not leave our gifted students behind either. Some of what we purchase we'll have to consider consumable, and a child will not return it when he's finished with it. More expensive items, such as a computer or even a cellular internet modem, must be returned so it can be used again. And yes, I said cellular modem, and that would do more to help our struggling students than continuing to spend money on our equity programs that don't have any positive effect on our students. I want to ensure that every student is given an opportunity to succeed when they graduate from Isle of Wight schools. If they have the capacity to be a doctor, then we need to give them the education that will get them into medical school. If their abilities lead them to work in the fast food industry, let's ensure they have the education and the mindset they need to move up and eventually own their own store. Our goal is to help students reach their full potential, nothing more and nothing less. As I close, I'm asking the school board to consider actively recruiting teachers and administrators who are fully qualified and would be good mentors and good role models for all of our students.
Time.
Please go to job fairs as well as military bases to recruit good men and women, and I will help in any way I can. Thank you very much.
Miss Scott is here. Is here. That's it. Thank you. Sorry. Hi.
Good evening. My name is Nell Jones Sear, and I've been a resident of Isle of Wight County my entire life and was educated in this school system. First of all, I'd like to thank each of you for your dedication and service to our students and staff. Serving on the school board should never be pursued to gain power, but to serve. If you have any other goal than serving the students of this county, then you are in the wrong place. I may be slightly prejudiced, but I still consider Isle of Wight one of the finest school systems in the area. I don't know a lot about CRT. In fact, I don't really know much about it at all. But I do imagine that in years to come, we may even look back on that and think we've been sold a bill of goods, and it'll line the pockets of book writers and theorists and philosophers, but in the end be of little substance and value like so many things. But here's something I do know about. I know about the school year 1969 to 70. That was a monumental year in this county for both black and white children. That year probably means nothing to most of you, but it was embroiled in controversy. See, that was my senior year, and it was the year that Isle of Wight County Schools became fully integrated. And oh my goodness, the fear, the anxiety, the nail biting as I look back on it, I don't know what our parents thought was going to happen to us, but to make this 3 minutes, I can tell you that we got into school, we sized each other up, and by the end of the year, we were playing sports together, we were in clubs together. We had a co-presidents of our class. One ended up being president of a bank and one a doctor, and you can guess which. It doesn't make any difference. We really had nothing to fear, but we thought we did. However, these days, I can tell you that with all the, even tonight, the visceral, insulting, and downright despicable things I hear in listening to these meetings and being here tonight, I can tell you that perhaps if more people would reach out to school board members and ask, how can we come along beside you to make changes for the betterment of our children, we wouldn't be where we are tonight. The Bible says a cord of 3 strands cannot easily be broken. A lot of you apparently read your Bible, so go look that up. Imagine the difference it would make to be corded together and working together to effect positive change. I really believe that parents and school board members really do only want what is good and best for our children. And I realize after watching many of these meetings, because I'm a domestic violence, sexual assault victims advocate, what I see a lot is bullying, because when you're the loudest, you're talking to the weak and defenseless, and these people sit here and can say absolutely nothing. Yes, these words hurt like arrows. Maybe it's time you dropped your arrows and came to the table and said, what can we do to help? Personally, I'd like to thank each of you for serving, because I can assure you that not many of us would sit here and take this abuse every month. And may God bless each of you.
Ethan Schwartz.
I'm here to talk about the bus issues. We all know that there's been a shortage of drivers, but where have policies differed because of lack of staff? Whose fault is this? I have to sit 3 feet apart from every kid in my classes and make sure that I don't get too close to them. But in the bus, we're sitting 2 to 3 in a seat. I'm sitting there with my face squished against the wall while another person sits right next to me with 25 pounds in my lap. My bus driver this week was diagnosed with COVID-19, and I was left for an hour on the side of the road, a quarter of a mile away from my house, because the bus doesn't like to turn around in my driveway. Thankfully, someone from transportation sent a car out for me. The cafeteria, everyone gets a free lunch now, which is great, but the schools do not have the timing down right, so the students a lot of the times end up waiting in line their whole lunch period. Because of how long the lines are, and if you try to bring something to heat it up, there's one microwave that there is usually a line that's just as long as the normal lunch line. And most days, and some days, I do go home hungry because I'm unable to get food for the day. Some days I've been bringing snacks and stuff like that, but I'm growing. You can't live off of just snacks alone. Also, please pay the bus drivers and the teachers who are missing work due to quarantine and COVID. It impacts me as well as them, because to know that they don't get paid after they're done with their sick days is just disheartening. Speaking of paying, you guys have spent more than hundreds of thousands of dollars on CRT. That could have gone towards more security in the schools to protect the bathrooms from what ungodly things have happened. It could have paid for scholarships, gone into the sports team, paid for giving teachers more salaries so that my teachers don't have to work 2 jobs, because dealing with me is enough. Excel. I'm just saying that indoctrination isn't worth how much money you guys have spent on it and what that could do for the community. That is all.
Herb DeGroff. Herb DeGroff.
Madam Chair and board members, I'm here to talk about Virginia Law 22.1-253.13. This states the curriculum adopted by the local school division shall be aligned to the standards of learning. At your 28 July meeting, Dr. Thornton and you, the board reviewed and discussed 15 existing IWCS board policies. Specifically, IWCS policy, instructional goals, and objectives. That IWCS develops and implements a program of instruction for grades kindergarten through 12 that is aligned to the standards of learning. Number 2, IWCS policy IF, curriculum development and adoption. The school board curricula shall meet or exceed the requirements of the Code of Virginia and regulations of the Board of Education, and at minimum shall be aligned to the standards of learning. During the 12 August board meeting, Dr. Thornton, who oversees planning and evaluation of the curriculum and instruction and enforces school laws, and Susan Getz, the executive director who coordinates curriculum and instruction programs, presented 2 PowerPoints titled Curriculum Alignment. Their presentation were about IWCS's purchasing Hampton-Skiddy Schools curriculum at a cost of $66,692 to ensure, quote, the IWCS school system now has its curriculum aligned with Virginia's SOLs. Getz commented during the presentation, quote, with a small instructional staff, it's been proven difficult to create our own curriculum. If you were a new teacher coming into our schools, you did not have a curriculum. You had the standards of learning and some resources, but you did not have a curriculum you could follow. We have an alignment issue. Some of our standards are not aligned as they need to be, and this will help fix that. By Getz's statement, she told us all that this IWCS board and this school division has not been in compliance with Virginia law, and this has existed since the 1st of July 2015, when Getz and Thornton began working together. Why? Madam Chair, I've already submitted these to y'all in an email earlier this afternoon, but there's 5 questions. Why did Dr. Thornton and Ms. Getz not develop this curriculum aligned with the SOLs for these past 6 years?
1 minute.
What have they been doing for 6 years' worth of salaries? And why have you not ensured this has been done? Dr. Thornton and Getz, personally, if a child failed an SOL test, subject, or grade and didn't graduate because their teacher didn't have a curriculum aligned with SOLs required by law or policy with teach their child, should they sue y'all? Mrs. Perkins said during the 28 July school board meeting, if the division doesn't follow the law and we're asking for a lawsuit and asking the community as a whole to not have any faith in what we're doing, we're not following the law, we're not doing our job. So, methinks, Madam Chair, with this SOQ report that was sent in, signed by you and him back on the 18th of August, we have a violation of Virginia law. You and Dr. Thornton have signed an SOQ verification report that is falsely reported on this subject of curriculum aligning with Virginia's SOL. So who's going to resign tonight from IWCS? You should, and you should.
Time. Let's see. I'm sorry, I cannot read this person's name. It's, last name begins with a B.
Carlos, K-A-R-L-U-S.
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Don't call us, we will call you.
And could you spell it for me again?
K-A-R-L-U-S.
And the last name?
Bailey.
Bailey.
Say it like this.
Got it.
Don't call us, we will call you.
Call you, I got it. Thank you.
Carlos Bailey, Carsville, Virginia. The Woke, CRT. Let me get some eyes on.
Mhm.
Woke is an anti-Christian, anti-white, anti-American, anti-Western, pro-socialist, and perverse. It's iconic that our schools are left-wing propaganda mills. That's exactly what Ms. Amaya's Spanish 1 is about. And I have a copy of that with me tonight. Now we're going to spend $66,000 for equity audit. maybe we'll find out we're not teaching them to be a Democrat racist fast enough. Critical race theory is a Marxist poison. Its primary objective is to separate child from child, child from parent, child from teacher, parent from teacher, and the taxpayer from all of you. We are going to bribe students with a name on the wall, a button or a pin on your clothing, and a t-shirt. So let me guess what's on the button or the t-shirt being the newspaper didn't say. I'm woke. I now hate white people and cops. I'm woke. I'm now a Chicago thug. Jackie, you remind me of John Kerry when he said, I voted for it before I voted against it. Should have done your homework. I'm voting for John Collett. McCullough said he was against parents having any say about what our schools are teaching. I recommend a vote for Glenn Youngkin. And you, Jim, probably need to move to Chicago. Would the school board like to take time to apologize to this officer right here for the anti-police rhetoric that's in the woke books? Hello? I hear nothing but crickets. Jim, there's one book in there that reminds me of you. When I read the woke 70 books, the title is Lipstick on a Fat Boy. Thank you.
Mr. Ed Easter.
Boy, that's a hard act to follow. But ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. This didn't start in the last 6 months. It didn't start in the last 2 years. It started 4.5 years ago.
Mr. Easter, pardon me. Would y'all be quiet so we can hear the gentleman that's speaking now?
This started 4 years and some months ago when this country got stupid enough to elect a guy like Donald J. Trump, an idiot, a con artist, and the biggest liar that walks on the face of the earth as far as I'm concerned, and I got plenty of damn proof for that. Excuse me for my language. But don't be misled by this activity you're seeing here. This is political, it's racist, and that CRT was something picked up by the hard-right extremists in this country to create exactly what they're doing with it, racism to separate us again. Look, we've come a long way, but we still have a hell of a long way to go to get through this garbage. Now, my advice to the parents that are here, if you're going to get rid of your books, the first thing you should do is throw your cell phone away or your kid's cell phone away and throw the computer away. Because if they think some of that garbage they said here tonight is tough, I guarantee you their kids can get on the internet and pick up more garbage than they've ever seen in their life before. I can tell you right now. And don't forget, this is political. That's all we are. And it started about 3 years ago when one of the individuals that was speaking tonight started attacking that man there because he didn't agree with some of his idiotic ideas about what education is. So I'm here to tell you, it's politics, and that's all you're going to hear from this group from now on. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's all of the speakers tonight. Next is the board member committee reports and information. Do you have anything, board comments?
Madam Chair.
Excuse me. It needs to be quiet in the boardroom so we can hear what's being said. Thank you. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I attended 2 meetings since our last meeting. The first one was SEAC, which is here, as Special Ed Advisory Committee for Isle of Wight County Public Schools. And that in that particular meeting, they spoke about, we actually had a presentation from the director of the Parent Resource Department at Georgia Tyler Middle School. They have moved it to Georgia Tyler Middle School. And if you would like, if you're a parent, please go by to visit that. It's for any child in Isle of Wight County School, but it's not just for the special needs students. But if you have a child in a regular program and you feel that you need some extra resources to assist them, please stop by Georgia Tyler Middle School. But prior to going, call to the school to make sure the director is there that particular day, because she has specific hours when she's in the building. The second meeting I attended was the, this is one of my new ones, HRETA. And this is for those of you that are not familiar with HRETA. Years ago, we used to call it the WHRO. This is the group with the WHRO. And in that particular meeting, they discussed the Children's Services, which was the Education Advisory Committee, and that particular day. And they discussed all of the services they had for the children, school-age children. And they really concentrated on the one that I thought was very, an excellent one, was a resource, was the environmental van. It was a STEM environmental van. And you can invite them as a school district to come out to your schools, especially the elementary level schools, and work with the students. And they will, on STEM type, a STEM curriculum, and it's a van. So I did contact one of our principals. It was Hardy Elementary, because I thought about them because in I guess about a few days, I'm not even gonna say a month, a few days, they're gonna start construction at Hardy Elementary. And the students, you know, may be a little displaced with some of the noise and things that's going on around them. And this will be a nice resource to have there for the students, not just Hardy, but any student, even the students on Carrollton, Windsor, all of them can invite the van, but I thought about Hardy since they're gonna be going through the constructions. And that was it for this month as far as, you know, attending some of the meetings. I did have an opportunity to do some virtual things with Virginia School Board Association.
Okay. I also virtually attended the Governor's School of Arts, and we had 26 students audition, and while they auditioned virtually on October the 6th, there will be a few Saturdays where some will be invited to audition in person. So we look forward to the results of those students. I also attended virtually the CSEP, which is Southeastern Cooperative Educational Programs, and they gave an overview of the enrollment, and there's a slight decrease, which they seem to think that's because of COVID. But they also shared of their carryover funds. They have they're going to use about $293,000 to purchase 2 vans for the IT support, and then they will disperse the remaining $1,062,000 among the divisions that are involved in the CSEP programs. And the next meeting for both the Governor's School of Arts and the CSEP is February 2nd, 2022. And also, I need to read a letter from our school board member, Ms. Julia Perkins. Dear fellow Isle of Wight school board members, it is with mixed emotions that I am resigning from my position on the Isle of Wight School Board. Being a teacher has been my life's work, and I am grateful for the honor of serving on the board with you as my colleagues. I know that you will continue our important work serving the best interest of the wonderful students, families, teachers, administrators, and staff for our district. I feel it is time for me to retire from being a board member, just as it was once time for me to retire from teaching that I loved so much. I look forward to spending more of my time between my home in Windsor, my grandchild's home in Richmond, and my family farm in Louisa County. Sincerely, Julia W. Perkins. So with that, we will be accepting letters of interest to fill this position. Anyone that lives in the Windsor district may email or mail a letter of interest, including some of your background and reasons interested in filling the position, to Tracy Ruick, the school board clerk. And then a special called meeting date and time will be communicated, in which interviews will be held to determine a new school board member to represent the Windsor district. Next on the agenda is State of Schools, and this is 1 month in.
So, Madam Chair and board members, we were very excited at the end of last school year, knowing and thinking we are going to get back to hopefully almost normal. And we're excited, and as things progress through the summer and we have made plans, things have changed, and with COVID, and we're not back to normal. And it's a different year than last year, and that we have all students back, and we have been going around, we've been talking to staff, whether it's a bus driver, a cafeteria worker, instructional aide, teacher, administrators, and we just want to describe where we are and kind of set the tone for some of the initiatives or requests that I'll be making tonight too. I do want to say, we're going to go over each area, but there is a level of stress for every individual. Every individual's job, no matter what it is, has changed significantly. And it's having an impact on everyone, and the students as well. So we just wanted to go over some of the information. And so the first slide is just covering the areas we want to do. We worked with VDOE, VDH to plan for this year, just like we did the year before with the shutdown. We consulted our plans from last year. Many of our plans were to stay in place and returning to 5 days, but we have had many challenges.
And VDH is Virginia Department of Health. Anyone who might think, what is that?
Yeah, we have a lot of acronyms.
Yes, we do.
Yes, yes. So as Dr. Thornton said, we definitely had a plan going into this year. We were hoping that we might not have to use it as much, but that has not proven the case. So once again, we are back to lots of COVID stuff. So just to review, quarantines, so people who have had close contact, so unvaccinated persons have had close contact with a positive, have to be quarantined. We are doing the modified quarantine, which is 10 days or a negative test after day 5, returning on day 8. We have had many, hundreds of quarantines this year. Isolation would be a person who's displaying COVID symptoms and maybe test positive. Those people have to isolate for 10 days. We are working very closely with the Western Tidewater VDH. We consult with them regularly when we have questions, if we're not sure about things. They give us guidance. So we do really appreciate the close working relationship that we've built with them. This year we have closed 2 classrooms. Due to cases and quarantines. It was a large number of students who ended up having to be out of the classroom when we looked at close contacts. So we did end up having to close 2 classrooms. We monitor it daily. We look at the number of cases, where they are occurring, and we make those decisions based on that. So our nurses have experienced a lot of stress. I'm just going to say it. They have a lot of stress. They have a lot of things happening in the clinic. So contact tracing, it is extensive. So once we identify a person who is positive, we have to determine now it's who was within 3 feet, Were they properly wearing a mask? On the bus, we look at 6 feet. And so you have to determine who those students are who are identified as close contacts. So it's a lot of documentation. We have very extensive record keeping. So in order for us to know if we have a large number of positives or quarantines occurring in a classroom, we have to keep documentation of where those cases are happening. And so that falls on our nurses and our administrators to document those things. We all also, the clinic hasn't stopped just because of COVID, so you have kids coming that don't feel well for other reasons, or who need medication daily, or have a bumped, scraped knee or something out at recess. So the clinics are so busy constantly. Parents are frustrated, and we know that. People, when we have to send home the students who are quarantined, it's frustrating. Parents have to take off work. They're worried about their students being out of school. Sometimes kids come back. They become in close contact again. They have to be quarantined. And so there's a lot of frustrated parents out there. And so our nurses are dealing with that, and our administrators are dealing with that on a daily basis. We continue to monitor the health guidelines, and we are also preparing for COVID vaccinations and testing on the horizon. And I'm going to talk to you more about that later, but I'm just going to give you that little teaser, and we'll talk about that again.
So as far as teachers, again this year, teachers continue to do an amazing job, not just teaching the children, but caring for the children in so many different ways. And that maybe this year is as difficult or maybe more difficult than even we've experienced to this point as far as the work that teachers are doing. It's just incredible. So it's proven to be extremely difficult for a multitude of reasons, and we've identified a few things here that I'd just like to touch on. Teachers are continuously, they're right there in the classrooms with the children, so they are truly the ones who are constantly reinforcing the safety protocols that have been put in place collaboratively with the Department of Health, and those mitigation strategies, the masks, distancing, so on and so forth. They're having to identify and close gaps from the previous year's learning loss. Some of that teachers have always done, we know that, but now we're talking about extensive gaps. And so whether you're an elementary teacher and you're having to make up for that spiraling curriculum, let's say in reading or math, there could be significant gaps from the previous year. Or you're a high school teacher and you're having to fill in gaps from a prerequisite course. We're seeing it preschool through 12th grade, that type of work occurring. There's additional planning and preparation, obviously due to those types of recovery efforts, in addition to what a teacher would have already been doing with their course curriculum or their grade level. The teachers are dealing with and working through disruptions to the instructional flow due to student absences. So what Ms. Getz was just describing, students going out for a quarantine, coming back, maybe some of those students going out again. The teachers are constantly having to figure out which students are with them, which are gone, which have been gone, and that is just exhaustive work, and they're doing it. Also, just again, dealing with the revolving door of students. So you have that disruption to the flow of your classroom and the units that you're teaching, so on and so forth, but it's also that disruption to individual students and really keeping track of where they are. Teachers are doing all of those additional things that they've always done, but this year, and I think we have some information on this, Dr. Thornton will touch on in a subsequent slide, but they're assisting with arrival and dismissal responsibilities. We're seeing maybe twice as many car riders as we had prior to the pandemic, and so that's put an extra strain on the school staff and the way that staff are being utilized to help do that in a safe manner. Also, I think in maybe the September school board meeting, from remembering correctly, I talked to the board about the assessment, the state assessments, that sort of an update on those and accreditation. Well, a part of what I shared with you then were the growth assessments, and this fall we started that, so teachers were involved in implementing those brand new Department of Education growth assessments. We think that'll be a good thing for our kids, but also now they're having to go through and take a look at How do I analyze the data to inform instruction and my recovery efforts? So those are all new pieces for the teachers, and they've taken that on as well.
So building administrators, there's high stress on this. Almost everything we do when we talk about teacher stress or an aide stress and we try to come up with a plan, how can we implement this? It ends up affecting the building administrators. So they're dealing with more stress than they ever have in the past. The discipline issues, as I talk to teachers and in Smithfield High School, and I talked to some in Windsor High School this morning, the sentiment is, and I've seen it myself, students have forgotten how to go to school. They've forgotten the structures. It's a very structured place, and you have to have rules, and you have to have procedures, and you have to have protocols. For a year and a half, many of the students haven't had to have those. And some of the teachers I spoke to recently at Smithfield High School said, it's starting to settle down, and we're getting there. And so it really hit me when in the conversation, some of the teachers, we focused so much on elementary and remediation and that loss, but when I spoke to the high school teachers and they said, Dr. Thornton, do you realize when we left a year and a half ago, those 7th graders are now our freshmen in high school. Yeah, they might have come last year for 2 days, but they never really were oriented into the normal cycle, and now you're in high school. And then the juniors and seniors who have it under control, they know the system, they help the young people learn the system. Those juniors and seniors, a year and a half ago, were freshmen and sophomores. They haven't gone through the normal cycle of high school and growth and that full experience. So that was a unique perspective to hear. So that is why we're struggling too at the high school. And we were kind of counting on the older kids, they're going to have it. But when you start looking at those factors, it's caused some concerns, and they're working through them. But that is on top of everything else that we have to do. And it's a struggle, and I'm sure Neil could chime in at some point, for our students. It is frustrating for students. I saw one this morning who was out in quarantine, and volleyball's coming up, and the volleyball team got quarantined, and homecoming's coming up. All these things take away from their wonderful experience. So there's so much stress out there that it's just unbelievable. I did not think we could be worse than last year's condition, not having our kids. But this first month has been a struggle.
So there are obvious impacts on instruction. And so if you think about sort of what we view as the normal flow of classroom activities and a school day and the normal operation of a school day, we were obviously very hopeful this year that we could get a little closer to that, but there are still tremendous impacts. Distancing itself, if you think about maybe where we were with deeper learning prior to the pandemic and collaborative work, project-based learning, and the way a classroom might be set up and look, it looks very different right now because of the distancing that needs to be in place with mitigation. Lunch looks differently. We're trying to utilize classroom spaces and lunchrooms in some settings, or like at Smithfield High School, they're using some of their collaborative areas so that they can spread out and have a safe space to eat. So lunch looks a little different. Recess, the kids are out playing, but like if you go by West Side, for instance, you'll notice that a teacher might take her class or his class to a grassy area. Maybe there's another class a little different. Then you'll see maybe a larger group on the playground spread out. But even that looks a little bit different than it would in a regular school year. Certainly the recovering of learning loss and our instructional framework helps out a great deal with that during the flow of instruction. But that has changed the normal flow for most teachers, the grade level or the course that they teach. And then there's a pretty dramatic impact on deeper learning when you think about collaborative work, group work, project-based learning, authentic experiences, some of the things that we want our students to have a great deal of. Our teachers are doing an amazing job of giving deeper learning experiences, but they're certainly being impacted by the pandemic and the continued mitigation and other factors.
So transportation, this is not new, and this is really not associated to the pandemic. It's been worsened by it. We have a major shortage in transportation across the country, across Virginia. Some of my colleagues are still running 3 runs and have changed their school times just to get kids to school, and that is after people have they're bringing their own kids, and the lines are lined up out of the schools, and police forces across Virginia are trying to help. So this pandemic has not helped with that. And I've met with drivers this week on the north end and the southern end and discussed the different issues and the challenges. And we've asked for no double runs. That's why we asked you last month to give our drivers a $1,000 stipend, because we're going to work new runs, longer runs, so that we don't have to do double runs. We're still trying to get, I think we have 2 that we're still working through, and we've asked drivers to come in and help. That still hasn't solved the problem, because if one driver calls in, we have no subs. Our mechanics are driving almost every single day. We're paying them overtime after all day working on the buses and preparing our buses and our vans to then go drive a bus. And thank goodness they're doing so. But like in the morning, if we get a call and our driver's sick, we have to instantly then try to contact all parents that we're going to have to do a double run. We're not going to be able to pick up your child on time. And that is so hard to organize at the last second. But that's happening. It's not going to stop. We're not going to fill those vacancies. We're not going to stop trying. But there's also a shortage of people transporting goods. They're hiring our drivers at a much higher rate. So we keep trying to do the best we can. And let me tell you, our drivers were great. But some of the things that they're asking for, too, is their safety and protection. The mask mandate for the bus was always going to be on at the start of the year. That was not in question. And then it ended up through the state that we all had to wear masks at all times. But on the bus, we can't space out. Our buses are more crowded than ever before because we have fewer. And I'll tell you, some of our students are not wearing their masks. They're constantly pulling them down. They're not telling the driver what their name is when the driver's asking them, I need you to pull your mask up now, because they're just getting to know some of their routes because they keep changing. These are some serious things. They're not sitting in their assigned seat so we can contact trace, which we have to do to provide safety. And I'll tell you, I assured the drivers that we are working on a memo and we're going to send it to parents and we're going to send it to principals, and we talk to principals, because if there's a breakdown between our drivers and our principals, then the problem's not going to be solved. For safety reasons, I can't have drivers looking constantly to see who has their mask on and keep fighting an issue that is ridiculous. We need parents' help in this. They need to wear their mask on the bus. They need to be respectful on the bus, and don't come screaming when that bus is in a ditch. You need to help us. But I know what I'm going to do in place, and I've told the drivers, and we're doing it. If a student does not wear that mask, does not give the name to the driver, or does not sit in their assigned seat, they're being suspended 1 day off the bus. They're not returning on that bus until their parent comes in and meets with our administration and tells us their child's going to follow that rule. They don't have to ride the bus. The bus is a privilege, and it's a major safety concern, and we have to follow through. And we're not going to have any drivers. We need to support our drivers who try to do the best they can every day. So we're going to continue to work. We're meeting monthly with our drivers, trying to support them. Some of them in the meeting said, what can you do for our mental stress? We need to speak to a counselor. And we have access through our HR where they can have, I think it's 4 or 5 free sessions. The stress is real, and many of our drivers are older, and we have to protect them. So the student drop-off and pickup, we have doubled, maybe more than doubled the amount of drivers. And that's fine. That takes some pressure off the buses. But it has created some problems, and we are trying to work on those. West Side was one of the first, and I know Ms. Getz, Mr. Lombardo, myself, and Mr. Coleman, we went out there and wore the flags and waved the flags, and we rerouted all the buses in the back of West Side. And we've asked parents to not bring your child to a certain time. And the Smithfield Police Department has been a great help, and it's been a great success. It's still issued. They're still backed up on that road, not as long, and we're getting them out quicker. But if the police are called off for some reason, we're kind of back, and we're kind of stuck again. It's still not as bad, but we're working on it. I was told Windsor Elementary School that they're blocking the buses from coming out. So we're going to go down there and look at how can we fix those solutions. Because the schools and the driver, they weren't designed for that. They weren't designed to bring half the kids to school. So, but we are having some success, and we do really want to thank the local police for helping us and supporting us. So, time for the staff. I'll tell you, so many of our teachers, as I walked through, one of our teachers said, I teach dual enrollment, Dr. Thornton, and I'm blessed. But I have covered more classes this year during my planning time than I do in an entire year in the first 3 weeks of school. We have no subs. We have nowhere to go. And they have no time to plan. You heard all what's required of them, and now we have nothing to do. We have to rotate and take some of their planning. So we did give staff November 12th a work day from home, and as an in-person work day. And one of the things that I'm going to be proposing tonight is to give teachers a day October 29th and December 10th, which is already an elementary school holiday, and make those teacher work days, which means no students will come to school those days. And I do know that that's a tough decision too, because now your kids are at home those days. And a lot of schools are doing things like this. We have to give our teachers time to plan and catch up and catch a breath. One of the teachers I spoke to at Georgie Tyler today said, I just need to catch a breath. I listened to her for 35 minutes. I met with bus drivers down there. I was going to go through several teachers' classrooms and informally just talk. I didn't get past her classroom, but you know what I saw? She needed to talk to me that whole time. She needed someone to hear her and just listen. And that's where we're at. So when I hear there's stress and morale issues in the past, I don't like to do this or that, these are real. And just want to share where we're going.
All right, so vaccinations for students ages 5 to 11 are likely going to become available early November. So we have been told to prepare, and we will work with VDH to offer them, just like we did last spring. We plan to offer vaccinations for 5 through 11-year-olds as well.
So before we go to that
yeah.
next slide, I do just want to bring up too, and I am not promoting any direction or anything. I believe in choice, but choices have consequences. And some of the things I've heard and some of the anger I've heard from some parents, and I ran across one today, is my child has to go home for quarantine because they were exposed. Then they came back to school and went to another class and they had to be quarantined. These were high school age students. a high school age student can get the vaccination. If you have the vaccination, you don't need to be quarantined. I'm not promoting getting the vaccination, but you need to process all that as a family and make your decision. If you are so frustrated and there is that high possibility of getting quarantined, then you need to consider the effect of your child, and you need to consider vaccination. You need to have that discussion. I'm bringing that up because now the same thing is going to be available at the elementary level.
And I did want to mention, I neglected to the last time, we are hiring clinic assistants for our nurses to assist in the clinic. They will do things like helping with the contact tracing, helping with making phone calls, helping to document some of the paperwork. So you don't have to have medical experience. We're going to train you. We've hired 3 so far. We are looking. So if anyone's interested in being a clinic assistant, or you know someone, please encourage them to apply. Again, we have lots of positions that are available. We just don't have the applicants.
So,
Is this for every school?
Or there may be some shared positions, but we have a number of positions available.
but I talked to the lead nurse today, and she was so thankful that we're able to do that, and we're going to do it through CARES funds. And it's great to have those funds to be flexible and make these changes we need to do. But we said we could do this, and we started advertising 3 weeks ago. We've only filled 3 positions. The only other applicant they're interviewing were all from the Franklin area, but the jobs in the southern end are filled. We don't know if they'll drive all the way to the northern end. I don't know why there's not applicants here. We have 9 special ed IAs open. We still have 1 first grade, second grade IA position open. The jobs are there. We can fix some of it because of the CARES funds. But if there's no one applying, it's really not a solution. So it's easy to say, oh, hire some more aides and they can cover for some of the teachers. We would love to, but they're not out there. We're going to keep trying.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
The jobs with the nurses' assistants, these are temporary positions. Because you said you were doing it with the CARES
I'm doing
fund.
it on the fly, so as I'm going through and I'm talking to people, and this is like crisis mode, I gave authority to HR and told the lead nurse who's interviewing them that we will put them on in the budget as an ongoing thing. Our nurses, even before COVID, were overwhelmed. So I plan on these being continuing jobs in our division.
Okay.
And we're telling them that, and I told the lead nurse that, so when they do apply, yeah, it's not one and out.
All right.
That was a good question.
Okay, so moving on, talk about testing. So we have joined VISTA, and as you can see, it's Virginia School Screening Testing for Assurance. VDH has contracted with eMed to get test kits. They're called Binex Now. They are rapid test kits. You get results within 15 minutes. It's through a nasal swab. You have an on-demand telehealth person to proctor. They watch you, they watch the swabbing to make sure you're doing it accurately, and then they read your test results for you, and then you get a copy electronically of what your test results are. It's available for our in-person students and staff, and this would be for someone who's showing symptoms and we think they might have COVID. They could take the test, and within 15 minutes we would know. It can also be used for those students who are identified as a close contact. Close contacts can test day 5. They have to wait until day 5 of their exposure, but day 5 they can test. If they're negative, they can return on day 8. So we do already have a supply of these. And so our next thing is we are exploring how are we going to use them. And we are reaching out to our school nurses and our school administrators to get feedback from them. But here's some options. We can test in school. We do have to have written parent permission on file before we could test any child. If it's a student who's 15 or older, they can self-swab. Students under, it must be swabbed by a staff member. It does not have to be a clinic person. It doesn't have to be a nurse. It can be any staff member. However, if you are swabbing someone who you think has COVID, you do have to have full PPE on. Testing can also be done at home, so we can have the test kits available. Parents can come pick them up. We give them to the parent. The parent goes home, logs in to the telehealth proctor, and the test can be proctored that way. And then the results can be submitted from the parent to us. We can also look at doing a combination of testing depending on, do we want to test those who are showing symptoms? Because if we test you and you're negative, you go right back to class. We don't even have to send you home. And close contacts, maybe we send home, but we're getting feedback. We don't want to make that decision without talking to our nurses and our administrators. So they are in the process of kind of digesting all the options. They're going to give us feedback, and we're going to make decisions within the next week so we can start this in school. Questions?
So, but the tests are free to the division?
Yeah, so once you enroll in VISTA, you get the test. I will also say that there is a grant, and we have also applied for the grant where we could receive up to 4 positions to assist us with the test coordination, documentation, all of it. So we have applied for that. We have not heard yet, but we should be able to get some positions. But again, we need the people.
I was going to say, once
it's
you get
great.
the grant, we got to have the
And
people.
the positions are
Yes.
straight formula based on our size of our division, so.
So we're hopeful that we'll get those and find some good people to put in those positions. Again, trying to help take some of the pressure off of our nurses and our administrators. Our administrators are spending hours upon hours upon hours all day long contact tracing. That's not why we pay them. We pay them to be the instructional leaders, and they are not able to do that right now. All righty, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is COVID leave.
Yeah, so as you're aware, and in your packet, you saw a COVID leave proposal. There's no longer any legal requirement to provide COVID leave for employees, but due to staff being out and talking to the staff, this was one of the things they asked if there's something we could do. We've investigated what others are doing, and this was our proposal. We're proposing that employees be given 10 days maximum of COVID leave. We're asking that it be retroactive for those who have already had to use 10 days, but following the reasons in the proposal. So the employee is vaccinated, has proof of vaccination, and tests positive for COVID. Employees who are medically unable to receive the vaccine must provide medical documentation in order to be eligible for COVID leave. And then next, the employee is vaccinated and is identified as a close contact through school contact tracing and begins to show symptoms. They'll need to be quarantined. And the employee has to stay home to care for a child who is tested positive for COVID or has to quarantine after being identified. So we do have some stipulations, but we think this is fair and reasonable. And we're actually asking, this would have to be an action item from the board, and we are asking that you approve the COVID leave for a maximum of 10 days and make it retroactive.
Question. I just heard what you said. So just for instance, I'm a teacher and I have COVID, test positive tomorrow, so I get 10 days. Okay. All right, let's say I come back to school, everything's fine, and then I find out that I get COVID again in December. So will they receive 10 more days?
No.
Because this has been the concern of a lot of our staff members, especially the teachers, because they're around the students constantly, and they have used up their 10 days. And just like you said, what if they have a child, and this is in our system, child comes down with COVID, or the child is sent home for 5 days because of the contact tracing, and they don't have a sitter, what are they to do? That is their biggest concern. I would like to see something in place that would assist them. I mean, you know, if they're sick, they're sick, and especially if this illness came because of their job. And, you know, normally if you're injured or get an illness from your job, what is it, Virginia, workman's compensation, but they don't, that's not a part of this. So they could use 10 days up next week. And then the next time they're out, and this is the concern if they do not have those days built in, especially if it's a beginning teacher. They're out there without any pay, you know, for those times they're taking off.
That's why we're recommending this, because there's no COVID leave anymore.
Okay.
And we're trying to put this in to at least give them the 10 days. And then many of our teachers do have sick days. But you're right, brand new teachers do not. But we have front-loaded this year those days.
So this would give them.
So they do have leave.
A total of, no, I want to get it right now. With the days that they have coming in as a teacher, and they accumulate, this is an additional.
They would use this first,
So they'd
right?
have
So it wouldn't affect that.
I got you. So they could leave that aside for like, I need a doctor's appointment, I just need a medical leave. Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so we need a motion.
All right. Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we, what is it? Oh, okay. All right. Let me get my glasses and read it right. Make a motion to approve the Isle of Wight County employees who meet the COVID leave qualifiers be given 10 days maximum of COVID leave.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. It has been seconded. Vote, please.
Not up. I got it.
It passed. Okay, motion carried. Next on the agenda is the academic calendar.
Yes, so Madam Chair, I hit on this in the last presentation. The calendar and altering the school calendar, again, needs to be voted on by the school board. And we've asked that October 29th and December 10th be staff workdays and student holidays to provide additional planning time for teachers who are covering classes during their planning time.
Okay, this is an action item. Need a motion, please?
Okay, Madam Chair, approve the October the 29th and the December the 10th, 2021 as staff work days. No, staff work days and student holiday to provide additional planning time for teachers who are covering classes during their planning time.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and it has been seconded. Vote, please. Motion carried. Next on the agenda is the October financial reports.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Thornton. Excuse me. In your packet was the September check register closing out the month of September. I want to start with asking, were there any questions on the check register?
The Howard Rondell Shannon, it was $10,250. Could you kind of explain what that was?
We have a local contractor, Howard Shannon, And there's, that in reference to two of the projects that he's working on at Smithfield High School. One, he was repairing a floor where he had to chip up the floor and re-pour, I don't know if it's concrete, but to redo the flooring. And then secondly, he's renovating the locker rooms at the high school.
Okay.
So those two made up the $10,250.
And the only other question, I know on the Amazon and the Bank of America, there was a lot of instruction materials, and of course, that's what we're here for, instruction. But are all of these listings things ordered from various schools or just from central office?
And I did see the question, and I missed the piece of instructional material. I answered the question on professional. I apologize for that. It is from various schools. In the coding, if you know which series represents the location, you would be able to see that those, the location number changes, and that tells you whether central office ordered it. And if central office orders it, it's not for central office necessarily. They will buy and supply supplies to the schools, and then many of those were directly ordered by the schools.
So there's a code for schools?
There's a 3-digit code that references the location.
Okay.
Yes. And at the top of your check register, I do believe, let me just double check. Yes, on the first page, it says fund, year, fund, LOC for location.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. It won't mean anything to you, but as they change, that's a different school. Yes. Because you don't know the school numbers, so. Any other questions on the check register?
Do you have any questions? Okay.
I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. Regarding the financial, I was happily surprised. The percentage of budget that we have spent is actually less this time of year than last year, and we're in full steam mode, so I was surprised to see that. I thought we would have spent a higher percentage than last year at this time. So in your financial report, you'll see 23.6% versus last year at this time, 27.2%. So to me, that's a good thing. So let me move on. If there's no more questions, on to your budget calendar. Sorry. That's all right, no problem. And I have it on the phone, so I'm just calling it up. I didn't print it out, I should have. So in your packet is referencing the proposed budget calendar. Beginning next week, I'll be getting notification out to the schools, different offices, to begin planning for the 22-23 school year, if you can believe that.
Crazy.
Neely will be in college at that point. We'll miss you, but we're now planning for your college freshman year. And it's many dates that have the board approving. There's work sessions, tentative, and then it does end based on Virginia code with the Board of Supervisors approving the appropriations. So if you take a look at that, you can hang it on the fridge or not, but we'll be following that plan.
And this is very similar to the schedule we've had at previous years.
Yes.
Okay, this is an action item,
Okay, hold on. I'll get back to
15.2.
Are you asking?
She's trying to hit this.
Got it.
There you go.
Okay. Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve the proposed budget calendar for the school year 2022-2023.
Have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, vote please.
And then nextly is, we received additional funds. We continue to receive these. And this one is additional funds through the American Rescue Plan Federal Act during these COVID times. But these funds have to be directly applied through the IDEA grants, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or for special ed students. And they give it to us in 2 allocations. So you'll see the first code, IDEA 611, is for the law states to be applied towards special education students ages 3 to 21. And then the second code, 619, has to specifically be applied to students 3 to 5 or preschoolers. We got significantly more, and which is typical in IDEA. You'll see the larger amount in the code of 611, 279,000, and the 619, 20,000. So we're receiving just over $300,000 that we would like. Again, it's another application, so we're coming to you to approve the spending plan. Then we'll go to the Board of Supervisors and ask them for appropriating as such. Thank you. So with the 611 plan, the first suggestion in terms of buses, we're recommending 2 buses, full-size buses, 54-seat buses, which actually become fewer seats to put the wheelchairs in because it takes up seats. So we're recommending 2 buses, each with a wheelchair lift, and it does allow us to social distance our special ed students. And that's not the full allocation, so the balance of that would go towards various curricula, which allows us to apply additional resources to support our special needs students. Whether it's remedial or not, we would apply these funds, the $23,000, to the American Reading Company, Spire, and Number World, which are reading and math curricula. And lastly, with the 619, we are recommending specialized furniture for the early childhood special ed classrooms, which again allows them to social distance, allows them to move the furniture around. It comes at about yay high, so it's very practical for those classrooms, and it'll give them a whole lot of flexibility. So assuming the board approves that spending plan, we would then request of the Board of Supervisors that they appropriate the funds. The $200,000 would be in the transportation functional category, and the others would be in the instructional functional category, which is how they approve it. And then lastly, we put in for the state, who then has to approve the plan, and then we spend the money. So, are there any questions on that grant? Okay.
No.
Okay.
Very good.
I would like to make a motion to approve the Individuals with Disability Education Act American Rescue Plan spending plan. Authorize the superintendent to request appropriations by the County Board of Supervisors.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. It has been seconded. Vote, please. Okay, the motion carried. Now we are on technology update. Thank you, Mr. Kapnis.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Chair, Board, Dr. Thornton. I just wanted to do a quick technology update for everyone today. As the request of Dr. Thornton, this is just to keep in line with what discussions are going on around town. So first off, I just wanted to go through the policies, regulations, and laws that really define the decisions that we make in general for the tech department. One is SIPA, which is the Child Internet Protection Act. In general, you follow it or you don't get your E-rate funding. COPPA, which isn't so much us, but we do need to be aware of it, which is the Child Online Protection Privacy Rule. This is what companies like Facebook and things have to follow the saying that no one under the age of 13 is creating an account on their site. FERPA, which is the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, there's nothing in the context of this discussion, but it is something we always keep in mind.
What was that
HIPAA,
again, family education?
Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, it's basically saying that, from my side of the house, it basically says that if somebody wants access to students' data, a parent has the right to access it. Right, so I can pull logs for parents should it be requested.
Their own students, their own children, not anybody else's.
No.
Exactly, okay.
To clarify, yes, you are correct. HIPAA, which is not anything involving this context whatsoever, but it is something we also keep in mind. We have two policies, well, a policy and a regulation, IIBEA/GAB, which was recently reapproved, which is extensive and talks about lots of code, which I recorded here in case you really want it. It's super exciting information. And then IIBEA-R/GAB-R, which is a local policy, which is basically our definitions and expectations and repercussions should you violate any of the above. So usually I come up and I spout a lot of numbers at you guys, and it's relatively only exciting to me, which is fine. But today I wanted to tell a story. So today, a child is at home, and they've been home for a long period of time, and this has been around for a very long period of time. And eventually, these things called schools came around, and the child went to school. And then many years passed. And the internet was developed. I skipped a few things in there. But schools got internet, and they were one of the first early adopters, and then people like me got jobs, which is exciting again for me. But then people also wanted to go home and get internet. And so internet was provided to people's houses after schools. And so then you have kids, and they're at school, and they're at home, and they're getting internet. And then many, many more people want internet, like staff and, people who do jobs. And so we have to do things like firewalls, which protects those users from all the little baddies out there. It also filters certain website types, such as adult content, gambling and drugs, social media, streaming audio, games.
And my emails.
You are correct. Many times I've had to allow PAX emails past the filters. Many times. And so when you were at school, staff and students, we blocked those things as defined by all the rules that we just talked about. Now, streaming video and audio is not necessarily blocked by one of those, but it does violate many other laws out there, like copyright and things like that. So we block them in general. It also is tremendously expensive to open that up to 5,000 students at a time. So some decisions are made at a local level just because we need to for fiscal sake, and other things are made for classroom management sake, and then others are made for laws. But when they go home, we didn't know what they did. Not really, because that was your home. But dealt with work. We dealt with school. So then students started going to more places than home because cell phones, yay. They went everywhere in the world. They got access at the Starbucks with their machines that we gave them. They got access at McDonald's. They got access on buses that we provide. All kinds of different access out there. And so we had to start increasing our visibility. And so we moved where the internet was, and we installed something called a global web filter, and moved how we filter things so that teachers and staff get filtered when they're on site, but students get filtered from everywhere. So you go home, you get filtered. You're at school, you get filtered. And at one time, all those rules were the same. So they went home, and we got lots of angry complaints about how they couldn't play Minecraft at home. And we were almost sad, but not really.
Almost.
But we do grow, and so we have gotten the ability in the past couple of years. My network administrator and I turned out quite well. Starting December 2019, we started evaluating a global filter that allowed for alternate policies at home. So we were almost done that evaluation, and COVID hit, so we kind of had to rush that decision. We have since grown that extensively, and so we've done things like we might block social media at home. It all depends on decisions and age, that sort of thing. Streaming audio and video, we do allow at home. Games, we do allow at home. Others, it all depends on the website. But we still block adult content, gambling, and drugs everywhere. So it also has now started sending all these nice alerts to our administrators, who absolutely adore them, I'm sure.
Eric, when did that start? When did they start getting these alerts? Because I didn't know that they were getting alerts.
So our Chromebooks started last year. Our original choice for a global web filter didn't really have that option. It was my network administrator and I who were sending all those through, which kept us very, very busy. But we've actually been able, we switched global filters this year, and that one actually has automated alerts built in. So they just went right to the administrator, bypassing my network administrator and I, which we liked. They didn't for a while, but we adjusted.
Because that's more discipline.
Yes, ma'am.
For the building administrators.
Yes, ma'am.
That they're not even at school, but they got to, I mean, they could be at home.
They could.
The child tries to access something, the principal gets an alert, and then the principal has to deal with that alert. So
they do. So the thing to keep in mind there is many alerts go off that are completely accidental or unintentional just because of the way things are classified. And it's things you wouldn't necessarily think about either. There are forums out there which you could think as a general, oh, I go to that forum and I read about whatever I want to read about. But in that forum, there might be some adult areas. And so the entire website then gets classified as adult. And so it can get overwhelming in a hurry if you're not very choosy about which alerts that you are being notified on. The random here and there type stuff, you just let it go. You have to, because it's continuous. But like if someone hits it over and over and over again trying to bypass, that's when an alert will go off. Right? So
they can contact the parent to let the parent know their child's trying to go onto a website that is not allowed.
And there's also AI built into it, which I'd say right now, although Ms. Denson would disagree with me, it's probably about a 70% success rate with the AI. Now, what that AI is doing is trying to detect skin tones, trying to detect words that might not even be visible on a web page, and it'll send an alert through. And so the administrator does need to take that moment to evaluate what that alert is, see whether or not it's actually a valid concern. They can dismiss that alert immediately, which a lot of them are, because there's one video that the kids are watching at Hardy is setting off the alerts over and over and over again. It's perfectly fine. I've watched it. My network administrator has watched it. Ms. Denson's watched it. We all agree it's perfectly fine, but it really annoys her that it keeps setting the alarms off. So she keeps having to dismiss it.
Can you fix it?
I have contacted the company repeatedly, and what they keep telling us is you keep answering every alert, and what the system does is learns over time that this one is okay. There's like a little, is this explicit button, you choose that, and then whatever action you want to do from that point on. So what we've actually managed to do in recent years is grow beyond just standard rules as well. So you'll see that we now have it broken down by grade level as to what they can do and where they can do it, as well as staff. So you'll see that I have a little maybe symbol on games and streaming media. That's because PK2 elementary, they can't do anything anywhere. They can do what we tell them they can do, and that's it. But 3 through 6 do have access to games and streaming media at home. Other than that, it's either blocked globally or blocked only at school. And then the other is a maybe because we can always add in websites or remove websites from those filters at the request of instruction. So what do administrators do? Ms. Getz wanted to speak on that.
All right, so as Eric said, we do get, our administrators are getting lots of alerts. What's the first thing we do is we investigate and determine, is this something that we really need to be concerned about, or is it not? Sometimes things get alerted when it's actually students researching something for school. And I can talk about some examples of that, but that does happen quite often. It's legit. The student isn't doing anything wrong, but it is causing an alert on our system. If we find the student is trying to do something that they should not be doing, we can do anything from, we warn them, we typically call the parents, let the parents know, we can suspend their technology privileges for a period of time. And then sometimes it is severe and we have to suspend them from school and maybe even remove their technology privileges. So it all depends on the severity.
Talk about the step down as well.
What part?
The thing that I just got working this week.
Sure.
This week also, actually, it might have been yesterday. We also got what's referred to as a global penalty box running for all levels, so that, say, a high schooler does do something that isn't a repeated concern, but maybe that first concern, you can put them in what's called the penalty box, which locks down things more. So instead of being high school students are allowed to use games at home but not at school, you can put them in the penalty box and it'll block those high schoolers from accessing games at home as well. So that's at the request of admin. Hey, put this person in the penalty box, no problem. We've had that for Chromebooks since we got them, but we've never had it for the MacBooks until yesterday.
So obviously things like cyberbullying, that is also things that are detected sometimes through messaging. We've had that this year. We are dealing with that. The harmful communications back and forth between students or not students necessarily, but again, we are getting alerts. And obviously nudity is something else that is problematic. It all takes time for principals to investigate, determine, is this really a valid concern, then take action if we need to. We have received things like with students wanting to hurt themselves, and they actually Google how to kill myself. And we'll get those alerts. This has happened. Students not at school, the students at home. We may get alert. We call the parent immediately. If we can't get the parent, we send the police. These things all put a tremendous amount of responsibility on our administrators, and we cannot police students' computers 24 hours a day. We are doing the very best we can. When we get the alerts, we do investigate and we take them seriously, but we're not tied to our computer, like I said, 24 hours a day. So when the devices are home, that also the parents need to partner with us and monitor. Ms. Dial, I see you sitting up, so I appreciate that. Yeah, so we need our parents to partner with us on those. Anything
Good?
else?
I'm good.
Questions?
Any questions? I do have one more slide that I added in yesterday. So you may recall, let's see if I can get it to go. Yes, we talked in August about the ECF and the EBB, which ECF is the Emergency Communications Fund. EBB is the Emergency Broadband Benefit. I just wanted to update you on those two. So the EBB is being sent home with all free and reduced packets, which is a program by the federal government that they will pay for your internet if you are below a certain income level. The ECF is a general catch-all, I guess, fund that they released that was for devices and/or internet if it was under very specific rules. So it had to have filtering built into the internet. It had to have cellular signal above a certain level. I mean, there was some interesting stuff in there. But we submitted in August for that. I think I had mentioned it then that I had just submitted that information. We were expecting a little money back from that, hopefully. We got more than I expected, honestly. The award that we received on Tuesday is $1,006,841. I'll say that again, $1,006,841. Which what we submitted on, we used the survey that we had sent out to parents. Yes, we do use that information every time we ask for it. And sent it up to the federal government with everything that I had put on the list, which includes K2 iPads, allocations towards freshman laptops, allocations towards Chromebooks, as well as expanding our bus Wi-Fi capability. So I just wanted to let you know that that was some fun news. Any questions on that?
So I'd like to thank Eric and his staff. It's something we didn't highlight when we were going through the 1 month in, but some of Eric's staff has been affected by COVID as well. And he's short-staffed. Some have found a much higher paying job, and we haven't been able to fill that. And part of it is Eric hasn't had time to take a breath to interview someone. It's like a double-edged sword.
It is.
And
To give you an idea, one day we actually had 3 people in the department. It was super fun.
so again, another example of it's been a challenge, and to help write the grant and do this and get it funded, that's not an easy process either. And definitely applaud him and his staff for $1 million that we can use.
Unbelievable.
Thank you. Awesome. Eric, before you leave, Eric, I can remember it was, about a year or 2 ago when we first went into the pandemic, and I asked you to reach out to our local provider, Spectrum, for this area to
Yes,
see if
ma'am.
they could do anything.
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing happened, but thank you for.
They do. So Spectrum does provide not only a discounted rate.
Right.
Ever since COVID started, I think it's
Okay.
$20.
But they stopped it, I think, this month.
It might be.
Okay.
But the EBB, which we just, so that will cover, Charter is part of that, Charter Spectrum
So they were,
is part of that program. So should someone be in that income range, the federal government will pay that through June of 2022.
okay. Thank you very much.
Okay? Yes, ma'am. Oh. Transportation. Can't walk away.
Second slide.
Next is the transportation.
I'm going to cover that tonight.
Okay.
And you have the fuel report in there as normal, but wanted to talk about this proposal. As I've been talking to drivers, and since last month where you gave the $1,000 stipend for the extended runs, we forgot about the bus assistants. They're driving those buses too. They're driving on those or in cars for extended runs, and we would like to give them a $500 stipend, and also for our bus assistants move their pay from $9.50 per hour to $10 per hour. And also drivers. We have really worked hard at increasing the minimum for drivers, and we got it to $14.50 an hour. We'd like to recommend a $1 per hour raise for all drivers, and that's car drivers, special ed bus drivers. And so the minimum would be $15.50, but everyone would receive a dollar an hour. Now, as we're going through these items and proposals, we're really looking at, can we fund this? And can we fund it with existing dollars in the budget? So as we fund these increases, do I have to go next year and add that same total to the budget and then go to the Board of Supervisors to ask additional funds? I'm trying to stay away from that commitment. So we are able to fund this, and we're able to fund it because we didn't fill all our bus driver positions. So that money that was budgeted for that would be dispersed to the drivers. So we could fund that ongoing expense without having to go to the county and ask for money next year. And also we looked at fuel and some other items and historical data. So we feel confident we can do this. Now, I also talked to drivers, and it's been a recurring theme. About 3 years ago, we talked to drivers, and depending who was the superintendent at the time and who was the HR director, they made decisions when a new employee came in. They counted their years of experience, or they didn't count their years of experience at another school division, or they didn't count their CDL truck driving experience, whatever it may be. And we are committed to, whether they drove with us for 10 years or with Suffolk, they have 10 years experience. We want to pay them for that experience. We value that experience because they're driving our kids. We also want to value the fact that they have a CDL and maybe they've driven on the highway with trucks. That's experienced driving. It's a little different than driving 50 kids screaming. But we want to value that experience. We weren't able to fund it 3 years ago, and we decided at that point we gave bus drivers a 13.9% raise, and they've gotten a raise every year, probably 2% more like a COLA. But we think it's time again to move, and Cheryl is working in HR on finding out their years' experience, because often they'll apply and they don't put those years' experience. So we're going to do with what we have as their year experience, send it to them individually. Is this correct? If you have proof of more years' experience, bring that in. Once we do that, we're going to see what it would cost to give them their year's experience. I don't know what that will cost. I don't know if we can fund that this year. That may be a request we have to do next year. But I'm committed to bring that cost to you, and I'm committed to bring that cost to our bus drivers. We have to continually battle this issue, and we talk to the drivers. Money doesn't solve everything, but it does help. And a fair living wage helps. So we are asking this as an action item tonight, that you approve the stipends for the bus assistants, the 50-cent raise for the bus assistants per hour, and the $1 per hour raise for our drivers. Have any questions with that? Or?
I would just like to say, it's well deserved with what the transportation department goes through daily. I know we sit here, and I'm sure a lot of us, if we had their jobs, probably would not have made it through the first week of school. And I know listening to the public out there, listening to us giving raises, these are some of the things that I agree to it, because it's well deserved. These people are out there every day, and they are putting their lives in jeopardy for the sake of all of us, because they are transporting our students back and forth to school every day. So at this time, I would like to make a motion for bus drivers to receive $1 per hour increase beginning November the 1st, and bus aides get 50 cents per hour plus a one-time $500 stipend for extended runs.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and it has been seconded. Vote, please. Okay, motion carried. Next on the agenda is Support Services and Operations Full Report.
All right. Madam Chair, school board members, Dr. Thornton, Support Services Operations Report. First, we want to take a peek at the fire inspections that actually occurred on September 26th through all of the schools in the division. On September 26th, they ended with 4 schools in violation, and that was 1 at West Side, 2 at Georgia Towler, 2 at Windsor Elementary, and 4 at Windsor High School. Since then, all of the corrections have been made. The actual fire inspector came back out and checked it, and we have the actual reports here. When those reports did come out, just wanted to note that all the violations were very minor. Sticky doors and doorknobs and different things of that nature. So I did want to pinpoint that. Next will be the lockdown procedures will be modified for the modified lockdown. And just a general overview, we had every school has done over 10 practice lockdowns throughout the division. And after every single lockdown, we have a AAR after action review. A lot of times this is with local law enforcement, EMS, and different individuals of that nature. And with the input from those individuals, what we actually did was modify the modified lockdown. There's 2, there's a full lockdown, and there's a modified lockdown. And the modified lockdowns are less severe. Everyone actually has to stay in the building, and then there's movement within the building. So we just want to let you know that every crisis plan will change. That information will be sent out to every school, and they will update that information as it goes. Next, I want to bring to your attention the Carsville Modular Classroom. The actual IFB have come to an end.
That's the wrong slide.
Wrong slide. The actual Carsville Modular Classroom has come to an end. for the bid review. 3 contractors submitted bids for the Carsville modular classroom project. And
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you because I took that slide out. We cannot show all of the bids of all of the contractors. We show the awarding bid, and it is on, it is the IFB, it is online on EVA, and you can look there. We don't do that as a normal practice. So Modular Technologies had the low bid, and there were no errors found in the bid.
No.
And it was $137,807.12, and they were selected for the project. So it's an information item, and we're
Yes, sir.
and we're moving on. We did an IFB because it had the potential to be over 200,000,
Right.
which you would have to vote on. So we were very fortunate that this came in much lower. And I believe, Ms. Carr, you asked me about checking what would it cost to build 2 classrooms, and I think Chris found that out to be,
Yes,
was
it's
it
gonna be-
close to $1 million?
Yeah, it's gonna be $1 million.
To build 2 classrooms.
Build 2 classrooms on the back.
So,
I know, and I asked because the school was, it was built so that from those 5th grade classrooms, it could go straight out.
Yes.
And when you build the classrooms, they're gonna be there as long as the building's there, and you know how the modular classrooms do. So that was my reason for asking. But we're talking 130-some thousand versus $1 million.
Right.
And with the building materials at this point, I'm sure.
right.
That school was,
I do think we should probably look at it in the
Yeah.
future, in a future CIP that we send to the county. As we go down the road, you know, we're focusing next on West Side, but out in the future, that's what the CIP is. It's a 10-year program. Eventually, yeah, we want to eliminate any trailers, and cars will probably need to be expanded.
Thank you.
Right. That concludes the actual support services and operations full report. Next, I would like to just talk about the actual, it's a action item that you will have, and it's another auction item. This will be a van, has over 250,000 miles, and it will cost at this time $4,000 in repairs to the actual body. So the actual repairs to the body is actually more than what the van is worth. So we seek to put that in the auction and move forward with that. And that is an action item.
all right, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the auction of 1 transportation maintenance vehicle.
I second that motion.
We have a motion. It has been seconded. Can we have a vote, please? Okay, motion carried. And next is the amended limited notice to proceed.
Madam Chair, next is, once again, the amended notice to proceed. Just want to let you know that the amended LNTP, limited notice to proceed, it is an interim agreement that allows NBCon to actually proceed with making commitments to all of the subcontractors that they have at this time. Now, this is done in order to secure the most favorable pricing. As a reminder, all of the savings under this GMP remain with IWCS.
And this is for the new Hardy Elementary
This
School,
is
to make
for-
it clear for everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is an action item.
An action item also.
Okay. Motion to approve the amended limited notice to proceed, LNTP, which includes a guaranteed maximum of 36,868,638,639, but it's one word that I missed. Oh, I got it. Maximum price of $36,868,639.
I second that motion.
We have a motion. It has been seconded. Vote, please. Okay, motion carried. Next is the groundbreaking for Hardy Elementary School.
I am delighted to be up here to announce that we have scheduled the groundbreaking for the new Hardy Elementary School. It will be October 28th at 1:30 in the afternoon. We have some guest speakers lined up, very brief speakers because we're not hearing them that day, are we? We are going to have, in addition to some adults flipping over some soil, we are going to have students that will be out there as well with their little hard hats and shovels helping us flip over some soil to officially start the construction of the new Hardy Elementary School. So, of course, we're partnering with MBCon, Heartland, and RRMM on this project, and they are very actively involved in planning this. So we are delighted to announce publicly October 28th at 1:30. We are going to have the groundbreaking, and I believe board members, you may have received your invitations to that event today.
Yes.
Are there any questions about the ceremony and what we're planning?
You know, I have one. I don't have a question, Ms. Briggs, but if you would get with Mrs. Denson, coordinate. There was a student in her building, and we received a letter from a grandparent last year. And I mentioned to her, because I thought at that time we were going to be having the groundbreaking earlier, if we could have that student, and I even told her the student could assist me with my shovel if they were not going. And then I thought about, we have the past, the present, and the future of students there, okay, of Hardy Elementary students. And it was this one student, and she probably remembered the grandparent. They wrote the letter and what she had to say about her grandchild. And I thought it was, it was beautiful.
I will certainly do that. I can say Ms. Denson has reached out to some of her retired teachers who are very actively involved in speaking out in support of this. So they are delighted. They're invited to attend as well. So we're excited about it. I look forward to it, and fingers crossed for great weather.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'd just like to add too, Dick Rice worked on the committee to help through this process. Also Tom Durg, who was on the Planning Commission, and I've attended several meetings with the Board of Supervisors who have helped with this process and have found a way to fund this school. And really, we're crunching numbers, and Randy Keaton, the county administrator, trying to not cause a tax increase to do this. And last time I saw that, I think they were at that point of no tax increase or maybe a penny, I forgot. And they're still working on other things to hopefully help for the next stage. Because West Side Middle School needs to be built to fix the full plan of growth. So Hardy will house close to 900 students. It will be our largest elementary school. We'll have to redistrict, and Carrollton will become K4. I just want to remind the public of that, and your work as board members. We'll start probably in a year or so looking at redistricting and what fits best, so that we leave some growth in Carrollton and we leave growth in our new Hardy, and we have a good solid plan. So I want to thank all of those individuals who helped.
And when Dr. Thornton say redistrict, that's just the schools redistricting, not the whole county.
Yes, that's
because
just
I know
us.
they're going through that process right now, and I don't want to get it confused.
Yeah, that's not ours.
Yeah.
Right. You're right.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the SSC contract change.
Again, so this is another area we looked at, and we're losing custodial staff. And when I say we have partners, SSC, who do our custodial and grounds and our maintenance, and they're losing employees, and they're having trouble. And the continuity of staff that knows our buildings, know how to clean our buildings, they have to constantly be training. It's a major problem. And I know Target, I think, is offering more money. I'm not even going to say it. I want to advertise for Target. But we have challenges everywhere in other industries. So that's why it's difficult to find people. We want to keep our people. So with the state mandate is the minimum wage is going to be moved to $11 an hour in January. And we had that built into our contract. And the $15 an hour minimum wage does not go into effect till 2026. We can't wait till 2026. $15 an hour is a good target for they want to say a livable wage. I'm not sure that is a livable wage. I don't know. But I know some of these custodians who aren't even making $11 an hour now is not a livable wage. These are essential people, our bus drivers, our custodians, our grounds people. We're going to talk about cafeteria tonight. These are essential workers that serve over 5,000 kids, and we need them, and we need to stay whole. So it's about staying whole. So part of the presentation this year of a month in, we're going to do the best we can to give their kids the best education this year with all the challenges. But in doing so, we can't drive every employee away. We need to keep our employees whole, and we need to keep them with us. And I know we're going to eventually get out of this and get back to normal. And when we do, that $15 an hour is going to make it a lot easier to keep employees and sustain the system for a long time. So I am recommending that we amend the contract with SSC. SSC itself is not going to receive any additional money. The money is all going to go towards the increase to the actual employees. And that's quite a few employees, I believe. I had that number. I'm not sure where I put it. Oh, 52 custodians and 4 grounds. And that cost is, in your packet, in the motion, $318,360. It's a large amount of money.
That's the increase?
Yes. That's the majority. The majority of a school budget is people. And
right.
Again, I don't want this to have to be paid for sometime later in the future. So I've worked with finance, and we sat down and we've gone through the maintenance budget, and we had already identified areas that traditionally would come out of our budget that the ESSER funds can pay for, and the $1 million HVAC grant that has come out. So the fact that we can shift money within our operational budget and make this happen, and again, not have to go next year and ask for $318,000 from the county, I think it's a win-win. And we have to support our essential workers. And I know this is going to cause others to say, Dr. Thornton, we need a raise too, whether it be teachers or administrators or whoever. We can't do, I'm trying to do it where we can pay our bills in the future, but also go to our most neediest people and take care of them. And so that, because they take care of us and they take care of our kids, and I want to keep them. And I do value the partnership we have with SSC. It's a great partnership, and hopefully we can sustain that through the years as well.
I have a question. You said
Yes,
that
ma'am.
it was, as far as the staff, do we have enough staff right now with SSC to cover our needs, especially keeping the students safe, keeping areas clean where the students will be safe?
So we have had our challenges, and there are some dirty areas, and they'll tell you it's been a struggle because same thing, people out with COVID and not having subs. And so we had already authorized temps and paid them much higher, but they're temp workers for SSC and they don't receive benefits. And that could cause problems with the other staff too. But they've implemented that in other divisions where they're at. You got to do something, because you're right. You got to keep them safe and clean. So, and we'll look at that too. We look at that all the time when we discuss, and Chris meets with them. Do we have enough staff? And if we don't, we can add staff to the contract. But when you add this amount, again, we're over $200,000. This requires your action to do.
Okay, it is an action item.
Okay, Madam Chair, I make a motion to amend the SSC Maintenance and Grounds contract to move all employees to a minimum of $15 per hour starting November the 1st, 2021, in the amount of $318,360.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. It has been seconded. Vote, please.
Pass.
Okay, motion carried. We're at the 16.8 food service update.
Madam Chair, again, looking at our essential staff, Chartwell's is our partner for food service. And in our contract with Chartwell's, when we first began, we kept our employees. So we have a combination of Chartwell employees, and we have a combination of our employees still that work under the management of Chartwell's to service our children. They are now, we were hoping to serve all children in the cafeteria. I think we still do in the high school. But I know in the elementaries, we are feeding kids in classrooms again and in the cafeteria. And that staff is stepping up to the plate as well as they prepare that food, and they've done a great job. Due to the pandemic, and we're serving meals to everyone, our budget is very solid. For our cafeteria, that's a self-funded program, separate than the regular operating budget. And we definitely have the money to move those individuals to $15 an hour as well. That also, they have cooks and they also have managers, and that would shift them out of whack by moving the others to 15. So in cooperation with Chartwell's, we looked at what people pay, and Chartwell's was recommending $15 an hour for cafeteria worker, $18 an hour for the cooks, and $21 for the manager. We don't have our pay in line between the two. There's some differences. I don't want one of our employees to be on the line and say, hey, I make $15 an hour, and a Chartwell employee to say, hey, I make $13.50, and then get a bunch of emails or a phone call, what's going on? And that currently, we do have some discrepancies. They're doing the same job. It doesn't matter what company they work for us. And so we want to get that in line. In your packet was a letter to me from the regional vice president supporting this. And when he's saying he supports this too, they have a guaranteed contract that if they don't meet, they have to pay us a certain penalty back. So he feels like they can do this, and they're in agreement we should move forward with that. So that also would be an action item for the board.
I have a question for you before
Yes, ma'am.
we act on it. Majority of these workers in this category, a lot of them are part-time workers,
Yes.
so therefore they're not getting benefits like the other staff.
Now, I don't have the
Am I correct,
spreadsheet,
Ms.?
but the majority do work like 6 hours, don't they?
Yeah, they have to work at least 6 hours a day to get benefits, 30
Okay, 6 versus 8 hours, okay, all right.
We have a couple 5 hours, a couple 4 hours,
Okay.
majority over 6 hours.
So majority of them are 6-hour workers, okay, all right.
And the Chartwell employees are under Chartwell benefits.
Yeah.
Right.
But we would pay Chartwell the contracted price, and then they are the ones who
Yes. Yeah.
determine
So
their
it's-
pay, but they're saying their minimum would be 15.
Yes. we're gonna be in alignment.
Okay.
All right, I'll make a motion to increase minimum food service worker pay to $15 per hour, cooks $18 per hour, and managers to $21 per hour.
I second that motion.
All right, before we vote, I got a question. Like, when we were doing SSC, we saw the increase. Do we know what the increase is for Chartwell?
Steve, do you have, it was on, I believe it was about $140,000. I think our employees were around 76, and I think theirs were similar, because we have about the same amount of staff. But it was under the 200,000, but we're still changing the rate of pay for our workers, which is why you have to vote
Okay,
on it.
understand.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
I
so,
probably confused you by why do you have to vote on it?
yeah,
Yes,
but
okay.
I understand now. Okay, so vote, please.
It's not up. Oh, I got it.
Motion carried. Next is 16.9, instructional assistance update.
Do you have that total, Steve? Do you have that total cost for instructional assistance?
Can't even get it to come up. There it is, got it.
Okay. The same, okay. So again, we're going back to the same rationale. The instructional assistant IAs are not at $15 an hour, they're close. What is the minimum now, Cheryl? Was it
It is $13.69.
$13.69 is the minimum right now. And we have given raises through the year as we've tried to fix the IA scale as well. And I did ask Cheryl if she would update us on the history of what we've done for the IAs over the last few years, so you guys have an understanding of that.
In 2016-17 school year, there was a 2% increase for instructional assistants. 2018-19, we did a 10% increase for instructional assistants. Then in January of 2021, so last January, all instructional assistants got a $1 increase. And then February, the next month of 2021, we did a fix based on their years of experience. Anybody who was within $200 of being off of our formula, we did fix them based on their years. And then due to the governor's mandate that instructional assistants get an increase, for July of 21-22, they got a 14-cent increase.
Thank you. So as we were doing this and trying to do all of this is our spreadsheet with all of our IAs, which we have quite a few. And can we pay for it and not have to ask to pay for it again next year? Can we find it? So we had to look at what is that number? And I think just to put things in perspective for you as board members and for the public, the increase for this increase that I'm asking for, which is bringing the minimum to $15 per hour, and then everyone that's already at 15 or higher, to give them 50 cents per hour, will cost us $136,333. And that we can do through attrition, which means the people we hired this year cost less than some of the people that we had or retired, and that's pretty normal. And so we keep putting in the numbers to see what we can afford. And right now, all of our instructional IAs cost the division $2,588,939. So when you hear a $133,000 increase,
Doesn't sound like a whole
it's not
lot.
a huge increase when we're paying about $2.6 million to have IAs. And that's just in their salaries, that doesn't count their benefits. And so, again, when we do teachers, and teachers get raises often because the state mandates it every year, and they tell school divisions, you can do it and give a 3% raise, an average 3% raise. There are some years we take that teacher scale and we look, and the beginning steps are really hurting. So we apply that state money, and we give a bigger increase at the front end of that scale. And then at the back end of the scale, the more veteran teachers may not get that. There's been years where we've done the opposite and said, you know what? We've taken care of the front end, we really need to take care of our veteran, and we've given them a larger raise, but it averages 3%. Sometimes that's gonna happen. And again, I'd love to do it perfectly even. So the lowest employee is gonna make $1.31 more, and variations of that. If there's employees that are making $14.70 right now, they'll get a 30-cent increase. Anyone below 15 is gonna go to 15. So it's not perfectly even, everyone getting the same amount. But if we took no action for anyone, no one would get a raise. Again, we're trying to get to the 15 minimum, and we did fix the year's experience, and we've done a lot over the years to get our IAs moving in the right direction. I believe our IAs are one of the highest paid in the region. But again, I'm not worried about the region. I'm worried about a livable wage and keeping good people that we train to work with our kids as long as we can keep them.
And Dr. Thornton, that's what I'm hearing, and I heard you when we were talking about, you know, the bus drivers or the custodians, how we value their experience. But if we have IAs who have been with us for 20 years, and they're gonna be making the same amount as another instructional assistant that's been, you know, new to us, that's kind of contradicting valuing their experience, because we know the importance of our instructional assistants and the training of them and them working with students, one that with all the years of experience versus one that just came in. And I mean, you know, we did get a couple of emails how they feel like, you know, they don't feel we value their experience with this. Is there any other kind of recommendation that we could, even if we did?
So let me talk to that.
Okay.
So to kind of clarify. So when our most recent action was to take all of our IAs, just like I said, I want to do for bus drivers in the future, and give them the year's experience. Because again, some of the IAs that had maybe 20 years experience were maybe paid the same as someone with 7 years. We fixed that last year. So last year, the group of IAs that got the most money were the ones with the year's experience. They got a big jump compared to this end, because we fixed it by year's experience. So we did right by them, giving them their year's experience last year. This is about bringing the bottom up to 15 and still giving them a bump to keep them moving. So we fixed the problem. So there's no one, the people who are making 15, where's the spreadsheet you gave me? We have people making right now
18.
from, yeah, do you have the sheet? Yeah.
No, but I remember seeing one.
Hourly rates on this sheet, we have people making up to $20.96 an hour. A lot of people in the 20s, 19s, 18s, 17s, 16s, all that happened last year.
Okay.
So they did get a large increase.
So
last
those people will be getting the 50-cent extra per hour. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Any more questions?
No.
Oh, you should ask that.
That's okay. Practice, girl.
All right. At this time, if no one has any questions, I would like to make a motion to increase the minimum pay to $15 per hour for all instructional assistants and increase all IAs that are currently at $15 per hour or higher, an additional 50 cents per hour.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. It has been seconded. Vote, please.
Dr. Thornton, do we, all of these have motions going forward? The reason is I need to take a break right quick. I can just step out.
If we take a, if you step out, we gotta take a break. 'cause
The
we only
next one
have
is
3.
information.
Yeah, but we have to have three, so.
We have to have three. So we can check again.
But then need you to hit your button again.
I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, keep going.
Are you sure?
Keep going,
You
yeah.
sure? Okay, motion carried. Next on the agenda, we're on the report from the superintendent with the strategic plan Vision 2028.
Okay, I'm gonna do very little talking and just show a video. And so this kind of updates our first planning session.
This is all about the kids. That's why we do this work. That is so important that we focus on our kids today and in their future over the next 5 years. What does public education look like? A lot of times we get stuck into, that was really great when I went to school, and this is how I went to school. That was for you. It's a different time, it's a different place, it's a different world. We need to educate our students for their future, not for our past.
So we are at the Strategic Planning Committee meeting, our first one. So today we kind of broke down what our strategic plan was and kind of brainstormed some new ideas on what we wanted to see in our new one and the focuses that we wanted to make.
So basically what we're doing is we're sitting down to create our educational plan for the next 5 years for the school system. We want to make sure that every child gets what they need to be college, career, and life ready.
It's super important to have a steering committee like this because not only does it involve educators, but it involves non-educators as well. And our goal in having these meetings is to talk about not only where do we see as educators where the school system should go, but where the community wants to see education go for I Love Wight County.
When you're drafting a document that's this important, that's going to steer the whole entire school district for the next several years, I think it's very important to collect as much diverse input as possible.
It's always important to step in someone else's shoes. And with having parents, administrators, teachers all here, we all kind of can step into each other's shoes to see the education process through a different set of lenses.
And the job of a steering committee is to push the limits, to explore, to take ideas, look at them from 3 dimensions, prioritize them against other ideas, and kind of set some North Stars for your school system.
As a steering committee, our job is to dream big, to initially not think about the restrictions or the limitations that we've experienced or obstacles that we've seen in the past with education, but to see them more as challenges.
Some of those goals are going to seem lofty and unachievable, but we have some time to get them done.
It's not something we're going to turn into VDOE and check off a box. This is a living, breathing document that will drive us forward through 2028.
I just hope that we continue to keep the kids that we teach every day our main focus. And not just the students that are enrolled now, but the students that will be enrolled in the future.
I am speaking on behalf of my daughter, Avery. Students that I've worked with over the years in regards to their mental health.
I'm here for my students with disabilities. The parent, and make sure the parent has the resources and everything that they need.
Those students that kind of get overlooked or told to conform to what everybody else is doing in the classroom.
Students like Juliana, who's a Latina, who has cultural expectations that we cannot begin to understand.
The staff and the support for them.
The student who, sometimes gets lost in the shuffle because they're not the high and the low.
Our job as a steering committee is a powerful responsibility to navigate complexity, to advocate on behalf of those who aren't in the room, and to think into the future, and to create the conditions that allow for action. The goal here is for you to know your why, and I think you passed that test with flying colors.
So the first day was really more setting the protocols of how we're going to work together. I'll say we have 3 students on the steering committee. Nearly is one. We had one that could not be there that day. And I will tell you, the Amos, who is our facilitator through this process and has done this work, he really put Neely on the spot, the student on the spot, and he treated them just like all of us. Yeah, because there's no answer that's wrong.
It was good to see
And
Neely on the
yes.
committee.
And I was amazed because I was not at Neely's table, but the other student, the male student, was at my table, and it was really amazing the ideas that he was coming up with. I'm like, I was so proud, to see this, to see them act on that level, and their input, because most of the time you would think students will stay back. No, they were not. They were right involved, and you asked the question, they answered.
And this process is going to be completed by what date?
Hopefully by May with board approval. Is that what we're shooting for?
Yeah, that's correct. We would be some point in the spring, probably like April, for board approval. I think we have tentatively.
So the next steering committee meeting, it was in the board packet, October 26th. So that will start having priorities, and that's where we'll start probably having to find subcommittees that will be formed again by different staff that may be experts in special ed, and then parents who want to be involved in that avenue. And so those committees will report back to the steering committee. So it's not the steering committee to decide what we're doing. It's this collective voice and hearing what are the priorities. And then at some point, we'll share where we are with our priorities and have community meetings. And so they can hear and see, and at every meeting we're going to follow up with like a video like this. David and Lynn do an amazing job capturing the day. Lynn took a lot of notes, David takes a lot of video, and capture what the day was about. So we're trying to share this with the community through this process. And I think it's going to be a strong process and get us to where we're going. And it's not how we do it, it's setting what are our priorities, and then that will charge me and the staff, okay, how do we accomplish those priorities? That will be our charge after the fact. So, any questions, kind of where we are? All right.
Okay, we have a request for a 2-minute break, and then we'll be right back.
It's been long.
Thank you.
Go girl. Y'all are having too much fun.
Long night, Ms. Carr, sorry.
Like recess, wasn't it?
Yes.
Fun recess.
Yes.
Okay, at this time, we're going to have the Special Education Advisory Committee meeting schedule.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Thornton. First item I have for you are the SEAC board names and the tentative meeting schedule. You have that in your packet. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Oh, we saw that. Hold on. All right. We don't have. We saw
Okay.
it.
No question. The next, so I have the next item too, and that would be the 2021-2022 child find dates and posting locations. So you have the list for the school year and a list of the locations where that information will be disseminated.
We saw that.
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
This is done twice a year, isn't it? The child finds? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the Discovery Education Resources.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Thornton. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Discovery Education and how it is used by our teachers to support deeper learning. So what is Discovery Education? It's really a repository of educational resources. It includes videos, games, articles, assessments, activities, virtual field trips, and then even professional learning resources for our teachers if they wanted to learn how to try a new strategy in their classroom. It's aligned with the Virginia Standards of Learning, and in fact, I'll even show you how teachers can use the standards to connect to specific content. And it's used by 85 of the 136 districts in Virginia to support their curriculum and deeper learning. Teachers, when they go into Discovery Education, this is kind of the picture there is what it looks like on a student's side, and when I go to mine, you'll see what it looks like on the teacher side. Teachers search for content using associated SOL or even search terms. Then they assign that content to their students either via Discovery Ed or via Canvas, so it works seamlessly with the Canvas platform. Students log in, they can log into their Canvas account or their Clever depending on how they log into Canvas either way. And then they can view and access the content and follow the directions from their teacher for next steps. Teachers might use this as a way to set up a station in their classroom, or they might give a specific student something that is just for that kid to help them with something that they're struggling with. So, it's gonna make me log in, I'm sure.
As long as we can show you
My tech
this.
director won't let that happen. What? Uh-oh.
I don't even have access to this.
Maybe it's after hours, Mrs. Dr. Kels.
It is. I don't know if I can fix this issue. All right, let's see if I can do it this way. Aha. There we go. All right. So, if I were a teacher and I am teaching elementary reading, I might be looking for a great short story to stick in a station rotation that I've got going on in the classroom. So I'm going to go up here to, the screen's got a little glare on it. Let's see. By subject, I'm going to click on English Language Arts. I'm going to switch it to K5 because I'm teaching 4th grade. And maybe I click on reading. And then I scroll down and I might find, oh, didn't find one there. Let's get another little piece in there. Maybe I'm really focused on reading comprehension. So I click on reading comprehension. And it's going to bring up all sorts of different things. It'll give me different reading responses. If this doesn't work, oh, see, that's 912, K5. There we go. Decoding words, context clues, reading strategies. It is going to find different stories. I can type in the name of a story that I'm aware of. I can select specific things on how to decode words here. I can pick any number of different items just based on my search parameters. But let's say that I'm a math teacher and I'm in 6th grade math, and my kids have been working on, let's see, they've been working on factoring, or they've been working on 2-digit numbers. I'm going to go up here, not 2-digit numbers, but it's late, y'all. I'm going to click on the specific SOL, and this is going to help them. I can pick these different videos that shows them exactly step by step how to do that. So if I had a student that was struggling with some of these things, square roots, real numbers, complex terms, then I can assign those to them, and then they can practice that at home or in class during their student work period within the instructional framework.
Or if they've been out for
Or
COVID.
if they've been out for COVID. That would be an amazing time. And teachers, when they click on, say they click on one of these things, they can actually get, when they click on it, a little slow. I think it knows it's late too. And when they click the share button here, they can click it directly into their Canvas account. So straight from the platform. It's not like they have to download it to the computer and then go back and upload it to another platform. It goes straight in there so that the two work seamlessly together. So it's really a nice resource for our teachers. It's been around for a very long time. I know that even I used Discovery Education when I was teaching science many years ago. So do you have any questions about it?
One quick one. How friendly is this for parents, being that the students can work on it at home?
The student platform looks a little bit different, and everything is narrowed down by the student level. So if their student goes in there, the parent can use their student's Clever account, and they can access the content as well. Okay. If they're elementary, they'll only get elementary. Middle school gets elementary, middle, high gets elementary, middle, and high.
It was pretty easy. I did it with my kids.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Next is the secondary summer school update.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Thornton. I'm Dawn Carroll, and I'm here to share the update from the secondary summer school credit recovery program that we had this summer. We held the program at at Windsor High School. It was offered to students who needed to recover a course credit from the 2020-2021 school year. It was housed, as I said, at Windsor High School, but both ends of the county came, so Smithfield High School students as well as Windsor High School students. The county provided transportation and breakfast and lunch for each day. Overall, 85 students were in attendance. So there were 30 from Windsor and 55 from Smithfield. And 111 total courses were taken. So in some cases, a student took more than one course. We were happy to report that exactly 100 recovery credits were awarded from those weeks this summer.
And when you say recovery credits, is that SOL?
It is, and I'm going to get to a slide that talks about SOL, but the recovery credit was the fact that the student was not successful in a course throughout the school year, and so we offered it it was about a 3-week session so that they could recover that credit. Okay. So we did have SOL testing opportunities. Every student who attended did not have to have an SOL for the course that they attended. So 15 students did test, and out of those 15, 12 were awarded a locally verified credit or a verified credit which was past proficient. And we had a summer graduate as well, which was a lot of fun. There was a student who needed a couple of courses for a diploma, and on the last day of summer school, after he achieved that, we did a small celebration in the auditorium. His family and friends were invited. He didn't even know, and so it was really, we cried. It was a nice celebration at the end of that session. And the biggest takeaway from the summer school was that relationships are just so powerful. We had, some students were in virtual or hybrid, and the engagement that the students felt, they verbalized their appreciation, which was nice. One student brought a gift for her teacher on the last day of school, thanking her for all that she did. Another student sent several of us emails also thanking us for the opportunity. She even said that she actually was looking forward to coming back to school in the fall because she had such engagement. So again, the fact that we were able to have hands-on opportunities, build that relationship piece was very powerful. Does anyone have any questions?
I just want to thank you so much. What you did for that one child, and he will never forget it. Because you could have very well said, well, it's just one student, just give him the diploma and let him go, you know. But no, you did it. You did that ceremony for him, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. It was rewarding for all of us involved.
And especially his family as well.
Absolutely. They were so incredibly grateful.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is the approval process for assigned book reading.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Thornton. I have the privilege of speaking about two of my favorite things, processes and books. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, name.
Haley Cooprider.
Thank you, Ms. Cooprider.
Yeah.
We have the mask on. Some people you don't recognize.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you give the name, I know right away. Thank you.
Yeah. Processes and books. We have recently implemented a new process for teacher to add new books to their curriculum. And our English teachers are absolutely amazing at finding books that are relevant to today's world and that students are going to really find value in reading. And so we want to make sure that this process is super simple, not super complicated, because that's not fun for anybody. The process is the teacher will complete the English text inventory Google form. After that, a committee will review the text, and then finally the committee will decide if the text is approved or not. And then we'll take a look at the Google form, which is the first step of the process. It is initiated by the teacher and is the focus of tonight's presentation. So it's 4 quick slides, and we're just showing you the first couple questions, very generic: name, title, author of the text. And then what kind of text, have you read it, grade levels, why is this text appropriate? We are asking if there are any controversial issues in the text, and please to explain what might be in there. And then finally, does your principal approve? Does the text need to be purchased? And then who is requesting to purchase the book? When do you want to use it? What's your purpose? And then what standards are you planning to use with it? And I believe that, and the themes you want your students to learn, and then why did you choose this book?
Who's the committee that looks at this?
Myself, principals, media specialist, teachers, parents, committee, community members. We're still in negotiation about who should be in.
That's important to the process.
Yes, very.
So, when will that be determined? Who's going to be part of the committee to approve this? And these are books that aren't already on the list, correct?
Mm-hmm.
These are ones that would be added to it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. It would just be, I hope that we do have a variety. You said a variety of people part of that committee. So
I think it's important to have all stakeholders
absolutely.
in the committee to make sure that those decisions are being made.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? All right, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Okay, next is public complaints about learning resources.
Yeah, I'll be super duper fast. So we do have a policy, but before the policy, typically if a parent has a complaint, any issue with any learning resource, a book, a novel, whatever, we ask that that person talk to the teacher, parents should talk to the teacher, talk to the principal. A lot of times, things can be resolved right there. If the parent still does not find resolution, we do have a policy in place for them to then refer to, and there is KLB-E, which is the exhibit. They would complete a form, submit it to the principal. The principal will then follow this committee where this policy, so sorry, where they would convene a committee to look at the resources and then ultimately issue a decision of whether we are going to keep the resource or not. In fact, Neely just participated on one of these committees recently. And then there is actually an appeal process if the parent still doesn't agree with the principal. But like I said, most issues, for years, I mean, if a parent did not like a novel, they'd contact the teacher. The teacher would just give another novel if the parent had objected to that particular novel. So a lot of times, they can be resolved before we even have to get to this process. But there is a process in place. Questions?
Yes, well,
Yes.
Just a statement.
Yes.
We've had several, like tonight.
Yes.
Several school board meetings have involved complaints about learning resources.
Yep.
And so this policy has already been announced to the parents. I did some extra research. I made contact with Elizabeth Ewing, the Director of Legal Counsel and Policy at Virginia Department of Education. I told her some of the things that we were going through with parent complaints, citizen complaints about some of the books or learning resources and general software. And she says, I've already looked at your policy, because I emailed her, and she did her research before she called me. And she said, what we've already said, you have policy in place, and that policy must be followed. So my question is, how many committees do we have currently, because of all the complaints that we've heard? I want to know how many committees, how many citizens have filled out the form. So do we have any right now?
I can tell you that right now. We have two.
We have two.
We have one committee that has met. We have one committee that has not yet met.
Okay, that's good. That's and any parent or citizen that has emailed me their complaints, I have told them this is the process that we are to follow.
Yes.
In fact, this lady told me that the school board does not get involved with this. That the policy says the procedure to go through, but the school board gets involved through the appeals process. That would be if the committee approves it, but the complainant doesn't like that, they can appeal to the superintendent. And then it's up to the superintendent to make the decision. If they don't like the superintendent's decision, then they can appeal to the school board.
That's correct.
That's when we get involved.
That's correct.
Okay, well, I hope there are some people who watch this part of the meeting, because this is
Ma'am.
very important.
Yes, ma'am, very important. Yes, ma'am.
That's our policy for everything.
Yeah, so Madam Chair, before I go to library, we have had, this is not the first time in education we've had issues with maybe a teacher taught something this way and I object as a parent, or you're doing a novel study, I want my child to have a different novel, and we do that and have done that. Often those are resolved when a parent comes in or picks up the phone and talks to the principal and has a rational conversation, and we move on and look into it and resolve the problem. And I have repeated to say that I'm not going to work in hypotheticals. I have asked over and over, if you have a situation that you don't feel like something, or you feel like something was presented in a class that was not right for your child, it actually happened, contact the principal. Try to resolve it with the principal. If you don't resolve it with the principal, go through the form or come to me if it's not a book with the form. There's procedures in place that we've solved for years. You don't solve anything by screaming. And so I hope people follow through and do the right thing, communicate, because we are very reasonable people who work in this division. So the next thing, I was asked to look into our system to see if it would notify in the media center parents of the books that their child are taking out. And I included in the packet, and the public can see this in the packet as well. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to highlight some things. The current system we have is Alexandria, and that it does not have a way to send out an email when the student checks out a book. It is possible to send one when they have an overdue item, and I think that causes confusion. Well, how can it do it with an overdue item, but it can't do it with the books? And it explains it in this process. And then we did look at what would it take our staff to do this work. And so we did some research on that, and we got information from the librarians we have. And they said if we were to do it ourselves, it's a multi-step, time-consuming process, including exporting all books checked out for the day, because students can check out the book without the librarian in it anymore. They can do it electronically. And looking up the student's number for each book checked out, entering those students' number into PowerSchool, and verifying and contacting the primary contact for each student. And because we got to make sure they are the contact, and this is who I can share this information. So they looked at how many books were checked out at the smallest middle school we have, which is GTMS, on September 9th and 10th. And in those 2 days, 367 books were checked out. That's an enormous process for our media specialists who teach and who service students who come into the media center. And then the high school, they were averaging 50 books checked out daily in September 2019. They used that data because of the pandemic, and we haven't really been back. They've been giving out laptops, and that's been the focus. And so my team did more research with other companies, and in there's rationale for why those companies don't do that. That's not my rationale. I think it was referred to tonight that I said, this is research. That's not my rationale. This is the research from others. But it is my conclusion, based on all this and what my staff presented to me, that there is a solution. And that parents and guardians can log into their child's Alexandria account. That's the best option. And that's the one I recommend should we decide to move forward with that, because it allows parents who want to know what their children are doing to go in at a click of a button and look at what they checked out. And so they can take responsibility and look at what their child, if they choose to. They don't have to. Now, we can't do this instantaneous. We still would have to work with the company to get this reconfigured to do this and assign accounts. And so there's some work to it, but it can be done. I don't see any reason why we can't do it, because that would provide a parent choice. If they want to do that, so be it.
Even on the elementary level, for a parent to say they know their child goes to the library every Thursday, so they can go log in and see what the book, if they choose to. Right. So parents would need to know that information on how to do that when it's available. Right. How would we inform them about that?
So once we can do it, and we've worked through with the company, we'll do a presentation and we'll send out information home. I don't think it's going to be difficult, is it, Eric? Most of the stuff. I'm not saying to get to that point, but once we do, for parents to log in, it will not be a hard process.
I don't make things hard for people if I can help it.
Yeah, once it's in place. So I don't want to put Eric in the spot. How long is this going to take? And because again, it's going to take work from the technology team now working with the company to make it happen, but it can be done, and it gives parents options. And so I would recommend that we move forward and do that.
And make sure it's communicated very well to the parent community so they know that it's something that they can do.
Do you need a motion?
We don't. It
No,
really
that's
doesn't have to be an
Okay.
action item.
Yeah.
I can put that in place.
Okay.
And, yeah, because it doesn't cost anything, right, to work with the company? Right. So, all right. Thank you very much. We will move forward and we'll update you on that.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is action on closed session items, personnel report and addendum.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the personnel report and the addendum as presented.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and it has been seconded. Motion carried. Next on the agenda is the adoption of consent agenda, the meeting minutes, donations, and financials.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as attached and presented.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and it has been seconded. Vote, please.
I've been up since 4:30, so.
Madam Chair, before you go to board comments, can I ask if you could clarify the effective date of Julia's resignation, because that's a legal process. And we
Okay.
have so many days, so we have to make sure that date is.
I got her letter dated October the 8th.
Okay, so is that the official date? Okay.
I read it October 14th, but I received her letter and asking me to read this October the 8th.
Well, we'll have to contact Ms. Perkins to ask
Okay.
her about her effective date.
Okay.
Rather than guessing based on the date of receipt or the date that you read it, I think
So
we'll
get
just,
her to confirm
Her
that
effective
she
date.
does she need to write it, or just tell me what?
verbal confirmation is
Verbal
fine.
confirmation,
And just let me
okay.
know. And then, because we have to make, in order to file a petition for a writ of election, I need to make a certification to the court
Today.
of when the effective date of the resignation was. And verbal confirmation is certainly fine.
Okay, all right, I'll do that
And,
tomorrow.
and I think for purposes of our record, if she would like to put that in writing as well, so Ms. Ruitt can keep it, I think that would make it more clear. I don't think it's necessary if we get the verbal confirmation, but for purposes of Ms. Ruitt, she may appreciate it if Ms. Perkins would also provide that to her, so she have it clear for the record.
And I didn't get what you said she needs to provide.
No, I said if she would like to email you.
Oh, okay,
Or of some
okay,
kind of,
email.
just some kind
Okay.
of confirmation, so Ms. Ruitt can have it for her record.
To just say a simple sentence is, as of this date,
Yes,
I
yes.
resign.
She can
Okay.
email you and copy the clerk.
I can, okay, I'll call her and we'll
Okay.
take care of that, not a problem. Okay, next is the, you ready?
I'm
You're
good. Yep,
good with
thank
that?
you.
Board, request and comments? Yes.
So I was going to speak. So I feel like I don't normally talk about anything that I do at the meetings because normally it's budgeting and stuff, and that doesn't really concern the high school student. So I was going to give you guys an update on what I've been doing. So Mr. Thrift and I have been very busy doing committee work. So I met with him regarding the dress code, like Ms. Tynes had asked about at the previous meeting. And I was given some points just on maybe making some adjustments with the dress code, just because some students see it's outdated with today's like society and how there's not as much as many resources for girls when it comes to clothing. Like if you walk into a Target, it's all cropped tops. Like it's not like full length tops. But that's just how our generation is. It's just what we wear. So just working and seeing if there were minor changes that we could maybe make to accommodate some like of the styles with today's times. And then I also met with him, like Ms. Getz had mentioned, with the literacy app committee. And it was me, Mr. Thrift, a teacher at the high school, and a librarian, and we met with a parent and went over Mac and Via, Discovery Ed, and TED Ed, and just talked about the apps, seeing if they if we should keep them with our system, or if we should put restrictions on them, and just kind of went over and talked with Mr. Thrift about what should we do, like looking forward with those apps.
Was there any decisions?
Not that I know of. I mean, I emailed him what I thought, but I have not gotten any
And when I
clear
meant,
decision.
were there, the communication, was it, it was just you communicating how you felt and somebody else
Yes,
communicating
ma'am.
how they felt?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So that was it.
And that would have been good if that had happened maybe before we got the program. I feel like that we've moved from textbooks to technology so quickly with COVID. And it's because everybody's just trying not to drown, and we're doing things. And I just feel like that, we have policies in place for textbook adoptions, and we might need to look at policies to see what we may need to do to revise it to include the technology piece. Because when we had textbook adoption, there was parents, there was teachers, there were administrators at each school. And then it was communicated to anybody who wanted to come and look at it and give their feedback. And I feel like if we, did a little more of that with even the software K through 12, that would really help. Sometimes it's not anything, but we're just doing what we think we need to do. We got to do this, we got to do this. And the challenges, the unprecedented challenges that has come up with COVID, I feel like this might be one of the reasons that this has happened. But then sometimes we need to take a step back and say, what could we do to make this better next time? And so I feel like that's where we're at with that. And
About the technology?
the technology.
We have a process in place with that,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Yeah, I would love to hear.
So, just so you're aware, there is some software that we put in place. COVID hit and it was React, obviously. But in general, currently we have a process that we've been using for, I want to say 7 or 8 years. That is sort of a committee. It's called a client advisory board. So a teacher submits that they want to use a piece of software, and what happens is it emails every single coordinator, instructional coach, and the instructional person over software, which happens currently be Dr. Kale, who was Susan Getz for many years. And then out of that group, if 75% vote yes, then it goes to direct instructional approval. And then if they vote yes, then we deploy the software.
Okay. And that's like parts that aren't K-12 or, it's.
There's some, so to give you an idea, this month I've done 41.
Okay, well, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. But what I'm saying is like something as big as TED Ed and Discovery Plus, I feel like they might have been something we could have treated more like textbok adoptions.
Okay, I just wanted to let you know how it
Yeah.
currently.
We would not want to do that 41 times in the parent community.
Would be
There's
a
some
lot.
things that, but, these big things that everybody does and everybody uses, I think that we need to, see what we can do that would include, a committee of diversity that represents everybody to make those decisions.
I'm just letting you know the information.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank
Eric
you.
often says he just does all the research, he makes no decision.
I can veto things, that's my own power.
Neely, I have a question for you.
Yes.
When you meet with your principal, do you ever get with Kylie and maybe the 2 principals and the 2 students reps, have a Zoom?
We definitely
Get
could.
together?
We definitely could. The dress code had kind of been a impromptu
your
meeting
school.
just because we had a big spike of dress code
Okay.
violations, and
Okay.
thought Smithfield was gonna fall apart for a second, but we were all good. We got it all figured out. So, and it's calmed down a lot in comparison to like the first 2 weeks of school. So, but it was just some minor changes that girls throughout the school, because he had made a dress code committee with a wide variety of girls like involved in it, and I'm sure there were some guys in there, but guys don't really care about the dress code. It was more of the girls, and so it was just some things just to make it more comfortable for them coming to school, and just stuff that they wanted me to bring to you guys, just to let you know, like maybe considering changing some stuff just to kind of fit society's standards.
What was some of those things? Because my daughter's not wearing crop tops to school.
Yeah,
so
no,
that's gonna be a
I
no.
don't wear crop tops to school either. I think my mom would run me out of the house. Yeah.
So hopefully that's not on there.
Okay. So off the shoulder tank tops and bra straps should be permitted.
Because
yeah.
children need to understand as well, when you're in a professional atmosphere, you're not gonna be able to wear that.
That's
Exactly.
So there are rules and dress codes you gotta wear everywhere. So they need to learn it in school, so when they get in this real world, they're not wearing anything.
Yes.
And that's what we teach our children.
Yes.
You're not wearing anything to school, so you're not wearing anything to work. So I don't know about that. I don't know if I'll be okay with that.
This is taken directly from the students. This is what
I bet you my stepdaughter was in there involved, like, yes, let's do that. I'm sure.
I think we need some parents on that committee.
Yes, I'll be on that one.
But you know, Dilly, I'm glad you all were able to get together as a group of students, okay? At least they had an opportunity to go through the process, even if it's denied. At least they know there is a process, and this is how you do things, okay?
Yeah, they just want to make sure that their voice is being heard and that
And
feel
they're
like
being
they're
heard.
safe. Yeah.
And that's all I ask. They're being heard. And of course, we're not going to stamp everything. Yes, it will probably be denied, some of the things they want, but at least we know how they're thinking, okay?
Now I heard the jeans with the cutout jeans. The knee. I'm okay with the knee. That's
Yes,
all right.
that was another thing with shorts and holes in jeans. So, yeah.
Did you have anything?
No, I just have to unpack my thoughts. I have a lot of them, but I have to go home and process some of the things that have happened today on my own, and then
Ms. Tynes?
I don't have anything to say. I said everything I needed to say during the meeting. I asked my questions and everything. I just, again, like I always do, I like to thank the staff for everything they're doing for the students in all of Wight County Schools. Thank you.
And I know the stress level is so high for everybody, from the custodians to the bus drivers to the SSC to the central office, teachers, assistants. I mean, it's just something like no one's ever experienced. And I just really feel for all of you. And I will say, you're in my prayers. I want to say, too, about, I'm not sure, but listening to some tonight, that some think that the school board approves what goes on in what books are put in libraries or what books are put, in a classroom. We do not approve that. So maybe if some of the community could go on the policy and look and see what the school board responsibilities are. And selecting books for schools is not part of it. So, for someone to say, do your homework, that's not my homework. And with that, I will read this. Serving on the school board for almost 5 years has been both an honor and a privilege. And while the past 18 months have been quite challenging, I never shy away from a challenge. I have always given any job I have done 100%. And at one time, deep down, I truly enjoyed the hard work that came along with the school board. That's no longer the case. And as I reflect, I find that over the past few months, the things that should have come first in my life, I've allowed to take a back seat to the school board. One thing I don't want to be is a politician. And because politics has crept its way in our school, this seat is no longer where I want to be. This past month, I was very sick with COVID, and I had much time to rethink my priorities. Life is short, and no one is promised tomorrow. I know that quite well, as my husband passed away with absolutely no warning. I will no longer allow my faith and family to take a back seat to school board obligations and time commitments. I have chosen to live my last days happy with my faith and my family and my health being where they need to be, my top priorities. I can't begin to thank enough all the supporters that have been by my side, and it literally crushes my heart to even think that I'll be disappointing many. While I will complete my term through the 2021, tonight I officially announce the withdrawal of my name in running for the school board in this November election. Those who contributed to my campaign will receive your donations back. I know who you are, and I have your addresses. The necessary candidate withdrawal form has been submitted. And with that, our meeting is adjourned.